30 seconds. Let me know if what I sent you on Facebook Messenger works.
A Thursday edition of the Sports Bash starts now live. Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City. I had to remember where I was for a second. I feel like I've been here, there, everywhere. Yesterday I kind of missed the show. Thanks to Josh for kind of filling in for me. That was kind of an unplanned situation. My golf round went a little longer than I thought in the LPGA Pro-Am. Normally our tee time is like 8 o'clock in the morning. This year they gave us a 10 o'clock start. So I didn't really get out of there until after 4. And by that point, I figured Josh was cruising and rolling and just said, hey, keep it going, man. So thanks to him for filling in yesterday. You texted me at one point. It was like 1:15. He's like, what hole are you on? I'm like, 11. Yeah. I didn't even play bad. I usually say I'm effing horrible. Yesterday I was just horrible. Like, not even one of my worst rounds. They actually used my shot to start the whole day off. Bang, right down the middle. 250 straight down the middle. The pro was like, wow, I thought you said you stink. I said, give it a hole or two, and I will stink. And I did the rest of the day. It was a lot of fun yesterday. Thanks to the ShopRite LPGA for having us out there. Thanks to Josh for jumping in for me yesterday. It is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, and we are live at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City as we are each and every Thursday. Last week we were at the EHT edition of Chickies. We're back at our Thursday home here in Atlantic City. Good to have you with us. We got a jam-packed show for you. Obviously, we're going to get into the Eagles and the Chiefs. The Eagles' all-time leading rusher has retired. We'll have details on that a little bit later on. Normally, we have a Sal Pao Friday. It is a Sal Pao Thursday because Sal Paolantonio joins us at 3 o'clock today because Sal has the task of covering. His assignment this week is covering the Patriots and Buccaneers. You might have heard they're playing each other on Sunday night. So Sal Pao is covering that game for the network, and he will be all up in Foxborough tomorrow and Saturday and Sunday. So we'll have coverage of the Eagles and Chiefs from Sal Pao today at 3, and he'll obviously give us some insight on how the vibe is in New England as they get ready to host Tom Brady for the first time ever as an opponent. Rob Gronkowski as well. All right, we got that later on. So Eagles, Chiefs, it's a really good Week 4 card in the NFL. So we'll go over the betting stuff today with Jeff Nadu. Good game to bet tonight. It's not a great game, but I kind of like the game from a betting standpoint. I'll tell you why a little bit later. Jeff Nadu at 325. If you have a fantasy football question, Sky Guasco, our new fantasy football insider, who I think is doing a great job, man. I'm 3-0 in my fantasy league, man. He has given me a lot of good information. He's given you guys a lot of good information, and we're going to answer your fantasy football questions as we always do at 3:40 today. If you have a fantasy football question, download the free mobile app and DM us through your phone on the mobile app or send us a text message at 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. That's the text message number to get your fantasy football questions in for Sky Guasco today from the Candlesticks Kids Fantasy Football Podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. But I got to start. We should be playing Taps back at the radio station where Josh is in the Matt Blatt Kia studios. With the Phillies season essentially dying last night. No surprise for me. I actually said I would be surprised if the Phillies finish the season over 500. Now, I do think they will finish over 500. My prediction that I made was about 2 weeks ago. I said I didn't think they would finish 500, and that was after they lost the game against the Orioles, I believe. But I will say, after last night, the season is over. They are 4.5 back with 5 games to play. They will not win the division. They will not go to the playoffs. They will not be in the postseason now for the 10th straight season. Since 2011, the Philadelphia Phillies have not represented the National League in their playoffs since 2011. The inevitable happened last night. They threw a dud in the game against the Atlanta Braves. They have thrown 3 offensive duds in a row, going back to getting shut out against the Pittsburgh Pirates. They were shut out for 20 straight innings before they finally scored a run against the Braves the other night. And then they were lifeless again offensively in the game against the Atlanta Braves. In a series that it was Wheeler against Morton. Wheeler pitched great. Morton outshined him. In a game that it was Nola getting the call to save your season and keep it on life support, Aaron Nola didn't have it last night. He was admirably throwing still in the 6th and kept you in the game. But when you needed him the most to save your season, Aaron Nola was Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola was the same Aaron Nola that we have been getting time and time again. Aaron Nola was the same Aaron Nola that we have become way too familiar with. The guy who just simply isn't good enough. And we start there today because, look, this team has to really, now that the season is over, it is over, friends. They are not going to the playoffs. They are not going to the playoffs if they win tonight and the next 3 games against Miami. If they win their last 4 games, they are not going to the playoffs. I know mathematically they are still alive, but reality says they are done. So now the breakdown begins. Aaron Nola cannot be on this team again next year because it is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. When you come back next year, if you come back next year with Rhys Hoskins and JT Realmuto and Bryce Harper and Aaron Nola and Gene Segura, and that is the core of your team, you are basically banging your head against the wall for failure. I don't hate Aaron Nola. I really wish Aaron Nola was the guy that we got 3 seasons ago when he was number 3 in the National League Cy Young Award race. That Aaron Nola, you could win with. That Aaron Nola would be a great number 2 behind Zach Wheeler. But the Aaron Nola that you currently have is not good enough. And if you bring him back next year, all you're doing is saying, we hope that Aaron Nola regains the form that there is no evidence that he can get back to. I don't know what happened 3 seasons ago when he was the number 3 in the NL Cy Young Award. I don't know what happened that year. But what I do know is I haven't seen anything close to that guy consistently, not this year, not last year, or not the following season. 19, 20, and 21, Aaron Nola has not been good enough. And because of it, the Philadelphia Phillies are not a playoff team. And he's not the reason, but guess what? When you count on a guy like that, your number 1 pitcher, he was the ace of this team. He pitched on opening day, and unfortunately, your opening day pitcher was 9-9 with an ERA in the 4s. Not good enough. Just not good enough. It's a microcosm of everything that is wrong with this team. Is everything that's wrong with the sports in this town right now is if this guy, wait, hope that guy, I hope that guy, if this guy. All it is broken ifs and hopes. And it's a bad state of the sports right now in this area. It really is. Think about this, friends, all right? The Philadelphia Phillies, again, 10 straight years not making the playoffs. And guess what? There is no path. There is no hey, I got to get from Atlantic City to Philly. What do I got to do? I jump on the expressway. Boom, straight line to get me there. The Phillies' road to getting back to respectability is like trying to get from Atlantic City to Bridgeton. That drive's not fun. You try to find a route to get from Atlantic City to Bridgeton, and there is no fun route. It is just a far drive to get through Millville all the way out to Bridgeton. That is where the Phillies are right now. 11 years into this. We talked about every executive in this town and every coach in this town. It's Brett Brown's fault. It's Elton Brand's fault. It's Howie Roseman's fault. It's always somebody's fault. This definitively is Matt Klintak's fault. He is the worst executive that this town has had, and that's saying something. He is definitively, Matt Klintak is definitively the worst of the worst. He is the worst executive that this town has ever employed. He really is. Because he had the task of having all of the riches. You talk about people don't like Sam Hinkie, and Hinkie did that, and they messed up this, and they got that pick wrong, and they drafted this guy, and he went this way, and Fultz went that way, and Ben Simmons has to go, and yada, yada, yada. Matt Klintak just bombed pick after pick after pick after pick and had no plan. He was in way over his head. And now the Philadelphia Phillies are in another rebuilding situation in a time when they went all in. They pushed their chips into the middle of the table. They went out and got Bryce Harper. They signed JT Realmuto. They went out and got Zach Wheeler. Those three moves right there are pushing the chips into the center of the table moves. Now, I don't know about you. I'm giving Dombrowski a shot. They brought in Phil Mattingly yesterday to kind of take over this minor league situation that apparently is just an absolute disaster. They have no young talent that's exciting to think about. They have a holy moly situation that they have to try to figure out how to fix with third base. Are you bringing Alec Bohm back? Is he your guy that, hey, we just needed to, give him a year? He got off to this horrible start. And look, I thought Bohm hit the ball after that first month in which he was terrible. The problem is he didn't hit with power, which you thought you were getting from the kid. He was so bad defensively that you had to move him out of there at third base. You just simply could not play him at third base anymore. So now the team has to decide what they want to do with Alec Bohm. They will have to decide if they can continue to play him at third base. Do they look to move him to another position? Do they look to trade him? Do they look to trade Rhys Hoskins and move Bohm to first base, which is another position they tried him at that he was not very good at either? The questions are now just starting. Yeah, they have been out of this thing. But the questions now begin. What do they do now? Well, if I'm the Phillies, if I'm Dave Dombrowski, the season is now over. I'm going to play tonight against Atlanta. I'm imagining I'm going to get a lackluster effort. I'm going to play this weekend in Miami against the Marlins, and I'm almost going to guarantee a lackluster effort. I would imagine they get swept by the Marlins. And guess what? They still need to win a game, I believe, to get to 500, over 500 this year. So when I said last week or 2 weeks ago, wherever it was, that I don't think this team will finish over 500, that still is a possibility that they don't. So I will ask you guys out there, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. You guys, what is the biggest move, the number one thing Dave Dombrowski has to do this offseason? What is it? One thing Dave Dombrowski above everything else has to do, because I got a bunch of them. I have a laundry list of things Dave Dombrowski has to do. And guess what? I do have faith that Dombrowski will pull the trigger on some of the things that are on my mind, including, one, Rhys Hoskins has to go. Rhys Hoskins has to go. Rhys Hoskins has us all hoodwinked. Rhys Hoskins has the wool pulled over our eyes. He has it pulled over your eyes. He has it pulled over everyone's eyes. Rhys Hoskins, last night somebody said to me, well, if they didn't lose Rhys Hoskins, they probably would have made the playoffs. Wrong. You want the numbers on Rhys Hoskins and why this team wasn't making the playoffs? In 107 games with Rhys Hoskins, the Phillies were 55-52. just about 500. And without him, they were 26 and 25, just about 500. Rhys Hoskins has to go. We can't use the excuse that the Phillies didn't make the playoffs because Rhys Hoskins got hurt. It's simply not true. They weren't making the playoffs with Rhys Hoskins because Rhys Hoskins ain't good enough. And Dave Dombrowski, I believe, knows that. 1. The 8 Ball, by the way, checking in, watching the show live on YouTube, and he agrees you have to trade Rhys Hoskins. 8 Ball, 2 points for you. That, to me, is the number one move. You cannot bring him back because that is banging your head against the wall. That is expecting the same results. That is doing the same thing over and over and over again. If you tell me I'm coming back next year and I'm going with Hoskins and Real Muto and Harper, not good enough. In spring training, we'll be on the air in March, hopefully. You never know. I mean, I could get let go at any point in this business. I've been lucky enough to be here this long, but by March, who knows what's going to happen. But if I'm on the air in March and we're doing spring training and Rhys Hoskins and JT Realmuto and Bryce Harper here, there's a good chance I'm going to tell you, not good enough. Gene Segura, not good enough. And you got one of the best seasons. Look, Segura had a good year this year. I'm not blasting Segura. He had a good year this year. Not good enough. Got to do something at short. DD, not good enough. Got to figure out what you're going to do at third base. Is Bohm the answer? Not defensively. Can't play him there. Left field, McCutchen. Thanks for the 3 years. Great guy. Great dude. Great dude. Time to move on. Center field, Odubel Herrera, one of the dumbest baseball players there is out there. Just mental mistakes after mental mistakes. Out. See you later. Need a new center fielder. You have 2 positions next year, catcher and right field. Other than that, you need a complete overhaul in this organization. Complete organizational overhaul. They've already done the overhaul in the front office. I'm talking about the roster. They need a complete organizational overhaul of the roster. What else? The pitching. Aaron Nola has to go. You cannot go back into this season unless you want Aaron Nola to be your number 4 or your number 5, where he doesn't have to pitch in a big game situation, because you already now know that he cannot pitch in September big game situation. You can't go into a series, in a playoff series, and say, Aaron Nola, you're my number 2. 3 straight years, can't get it done. You want Nola, you got to push him back in the rotation. If not, he's got to go. Zach Eflin, can't count on you. Been hurt 3 years in a row. Need a new number 3. You need a number 2. You need a number 3. Ranger Suarez, did you get the best season you're ever going to get out of Ranger Suarez? Is he going to come back next year and give you an ERA under 2? Not happening. I'll take him in the starting rotation. He could be my number 4 or my number 5. If you want Nola and Suarez to be my 4 and 5, I'm okay with that. Otherwise, you got to get a number 2, and you got to get a number 3. And then, obviously, the pitching. Obviously, the bullpen, I should say. The bullpen, the blown saves of this bullpen cost them the playoffs this year. But they're not the only reason. Guys, they're not the only reason. They are not the only reason why this team. The bullpen gets a lot of blame. They should. They deserve it. They're a big part. But they're not the only reason why this team is not in the playoffs. Aaron Nola is on that list. Rhys Hoskins is on that list. The failures of this organization drafting is on that list. The Adam Hasleys, who gave you nothing. The Mickey Moniak, who's given you nothing. A complete disaster as a number 1 overall pick. It's given you nothing. Cornelius Randolph, a first-round pick, giving you nothing. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Couple text messages coming in. 609-403-0973. Dave Dombrowski needs to call the Tampa Bay Rays and figure out what they're doing. Best team in baseball with the smallest payroll. Christian Rio Grande. Everybody should be taking a page out of Tampa's playbook. The problem is everybody's trying to, and that's the problem. You're trying to copy a team that does – you can't out-Warriors the Warriors. Remember we used to say that? You can't build a team like the Warriors to try to beat the Warriors. And now teams are trying to duplicate the Rays. You can't try to do what the Rays are doing. You have to try to do something to be better than them. Because if you try to duplicate them or replicate them, you will not be good enough because they do it better than you do. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. The Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad, he's going to try to untangle the mess of this Phillies season with me and where they go from here. He joins me on the other side. If you have Phillies questions for Phillies writer Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad, he'll give you the real deal Holyfield opinion. You know, he will not hold back. So if you have a question that you want the answer to for Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad, send it in now, 609-403-0973, and he will join me on the other side as we try to untangle just another failing season for the Philadelphia Phillies. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. It is 97.3 ESPN. I am live at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City, and I'm brought to you today by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Don't forget, tomorrow I am live at the ShopRite LPGA. You can come on out and see us today. You can come on out and see us tomorrow. Plenty of chances for you to see the show live on location. But coming up next, Bob Wankel from Crossing Broad will untangle this Phillies mess here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
1 minute, Mike.
All right, Sports Bash Thursday, live here at Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City, inside the Tropicana. You can always come on out and see the show live on location. And if you do, stop in at Chickies and Pete's. And tomorrow, we're live at the ShopRite LPGA. We'll be right behind McGettigan's, where the first tee is to tee off the event. Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, covers the Phillies, and he joins me right now to kind of untangle the Phillies mess. I know they were in this playoff race right up until yesterday, and they are still mathematically alive, but they didn't pull the wool over our eyes, Bob Wankel. I didn't have them finishing with a winning record. I think you were a little bit more optimistic than me. I don't know that that's going to be the case with these next 4 games. The way that went last night, you might see them just putt to the line with not another victory. That said, Dave Dombrowski has a lot to do. What to you, if Dave Dombrowski, the day after the season, his number one thing he needs to figure out is what?
What he is going to do with his outfield beyond Bryce Harper. That may not be the popular answer, but for me, I think that the Phillies really need another premium outfielder. And they're going to have 2 vacancies potentially with both Odubel Herrera and Andrew McCutchen moving on next season. And I think that that's something that they're going to have to address. I think that they need another guy out there with Bryce Harper that you can kind of cement into the middle of your lineup and say, this is a premium guy. He can play defensively. He's got a plus bat. And I think that that would do wonders for this team. But there are a number, I know you're asking for one thing, but there are a number of issues that this team must address here.
There's a lot of them. We're going to hit on a lot of them here. And Bob, obviously, you said there is a number of things that need to be addressed here. Let's go and start. First base, Rhys Hoskins. They are about a 500 team with him this year. They're about a 500 team without him this year. So is Rhys Hoskins somebody that they have to consider what to do with in the future, or is he definitively a part of their future?
Well, stats like that and records like that can be a little bit deceptive. There's a lot of different things that can be happening at a time. Like Rhys Hoskins can be in the lineup and the bullpen can be terrible, or they might not get good starting pitching. So, there are a lot of things that can go into that. But, yeah, to your point, listen, we've talked a number of times throughout the season. We've gone back as early as late April, and we've had this conversation about how this team, for whatever reason, just doesn't seem to be able to do what it's supposed to do in certain situations. And, altering the DNA of a team, altering the chemistry of a team. And, at some point, you're going to have to make difficult decisions, painful decisions. Are you willing to commit to Rhys Hoskins long term? Are you willing to kind of come back into the season next year and say, hey, he's going to be our permanent DH? Or are you going to put up with his defensive shortcomings again? And so he's a guy that has some value around the league, who has a quality offensive profile. And maybe that's a guy that you move in order to kind of, change the complexion of the team a little bit, and that's difficult to say because he had a really good season when he was out there this year, but this team has to do something drastic, I think, to make things uncomfortable. This team is too comfortable, and I really do think that one of Dave Dombrowski's top priorities coming into this offseason will be, what can I do to really shake up this roster?
Yeah, I agree. You can't. To me, you can't bring back the Hoskins, Realmuto, Harper, Segura, Nola. That group. It's the same. You know what they are. They're about a 500 team, and you need perfection from the other guys to bring that to the next level. Which brings me to Segura. He just had one of his best seasons ever. He has another year left on the deal. Does Dombrowski just give him away to get him out and change the complexion? I can't imagine he has great trade value.
I don't think he has a ton of trade value. I mean, he had a really nice year for them. And again, like if you're going to trade him, what are you getting back? Are you going to make your team much better by doing it? Maybe there's a partner out there that could really use that guy, that kind of guy that can hit in the 2-hole for you, maybe hit down the lineup 7-8 for you, be really productive. Maybe. That being said, who are you replacing him with? Do you like Bryson Stott enough to let him come up at the start of next year and really kind of take one of those infield spots? What do you have going on with Didi Gregorius right now? Do you want to bring him back next year? You owe him a ton of money. I know that there are people out there that feel like that he should just walk and that the Phillies should just cut ties with him. I'd be stunned if that happened. So there's just so much uncertainty in the rest of that infield, and we haven't even talked about third base yet. So, do you bring back Alec Boehm and try that experiment again? Where is he playing for you next year? So, I mean, there's just so many different moving parts. Mike, when you come into an off season, a lot of times you say, hey, these are 3 things that have to happen, and these are the 3 things I expect to happen. But there are so many different things that they could do. There is so much uncertainty up and down this roster at all parts that, I really do think that the way some situations play out are going to dictate how they handle, those subsequent situations.
All right. You mentioned, I think shortstop's going to be interesting because Didi signed for another year. You mentioned Stott. Do they think he's ready? Do they just push Didi out the door or just keep him around as a kind of a platoon player or a veteran bat off the bench? He's not a great defensive player at this point. So the shortstop situation, I guess, is another question, even though you have a player under contract that needs to be answered.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, the other thing that kind of plays into this and the other variable here is that the shortstop market is very strong this offseason, and that's something that a lot of people have talked about. Is there an opportunity to go out and add a guy like Trevor Story or a Seager into the mix, and when I look at this lineup, and I mean, you see they had their season on the line, Sunday afternoon, they had a chance as recently as this weekend, a viable chance to make a postseason push. This lineup has produced 3 runs combined over its last 3 games. And so for as good as Bryce Harper's been, I think that JT Realmuto's had a little bit of a down year, but still a quality offensive player. I just think you need another premium bat in this lineup. And where are you getting that? Is it in the outfield, like I kind of suggested at the top? Is it, through shortstop? And if it is, then Didi Gregorius can't be your guy next year.
No, he can't. Defensively, too, very weak there. Third base, as you kind of hinted at. What do they think of Alec? I mean, this guy picked 3rd overall. Tremendous rookie season in a very short amount of time, right? I mean, offensively anyway. Obviously struggled defensively. Then this year, looked lost at the plate at times, but then he kind of picked it up, but it looked like he was just kind of a contact hitter, no power. Kind of an odd situation with a very high draft choice. And in baseball, there's not a lot of precedent on, well, you give this guy X amount of years, you give that guy, because most of the time the guys are toiling through the minor leagues. He got up here pretty quick. So what's the thought process with what to do with Boehm?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, the way that I look at this, I think there's probably 3 outcomes here, and none of them include him being the starting third baseman next year. I think that the Phillies internally have to realize, and they probably understand at this point, that he just cannot hack it at third base from a defensive standpoint. So do you move him over to first base and give him an entire offseason to kind of work over there? Like, I know that they tried him in short spurts at first base this year and it didn't work, but it's also kind of unfair to just flip a guy across the infield and say, hey, go figure this out. First base is not as easy of a position to play as sometimes we make it out to be. So do you give him time to try to mature into that role, or perhaps maybe even left field? That's one possibility. The other possibility is that they just simply say, hey, you know what? This isn't going to work out here. There's still some upside with this guy, but, we've just kind of have to try to find a trade partner, maybe try to get another young player in return that has a similar ceiling, a similar upside, that also could use a change of scenery and just has a better fit in our system. And so maybe they do some type of even up thing like that. But both of those outcomes, I think the best thing for the Phillies would be, hey, listen, we appreciate the approach going the other way and being a contact guy and being able to use all fields, but look at your size, look at your hit tools. We need you to be a 25, 30 home run guy. Can he become that player? Can they make that a point of emphasis this offseason? And, I'd be reluctant to give up on a guy that has shown some promise at the major league level so early on in his career.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, again, as you hinted at, where does he play defensively? I think you just got to pick a spot and say so you can't do what you did with Cody Ashe and start him at third base, and then in the middle of the year say, hey, buddy, go down to the minors and learn how to play left field. Like, you got to go right from February and say, this is where you are going to start. And I would probably have that conversation with them tomorrow. Hey, you are now a left fielder. You are now a first baseman. Go start to learn it today. You know what I mean? Like, they need to have that plan, you would think, ready to go.
Yeah, I think that plan is probably being determined or has already been determined. Like, I don't think that this is something that they're just going to kind of say, like, hey, hey, Merry Christmas, and by the way,
right.
Start taking fly balls.
Right. All right. Left field, McCutchen. We hinted at last week. Look, he's got like 25, 30 home runs. Does he come back cheap, or do you just completely rip it up? And the problem, they don't have anybody to put out there unless Bohm is their answer.
Yeah, unless Bohm's their answer, or they can come up with a trade, or kind of explore different markets. I mean, that's one possibility. You can't bring him back over $10 million a year, in my estimation. I mean, if you could get him, $6, $7, maybe even $8 million a year, it's a possibility. The issue is when you look at the power production and some of the numbers, you say, hey, he had a decent year, but he was so streaky. And you can attribute some of that to injury, but you're going to get injuries when you have guys that are in their mid-30s. And so,
right.
I would be reluctant to bring him back. I know that there's not a clear-cut answer out there right now, but here's one thing, Mike, and this is what I'll just say kind of on a higher level. This team, I think, is embarrassed. I think that they know that this has been an unacceptable decade-long run. I think that Dave Dombrowski, and we've talked about this numerous times, is using this year in a lot of ways as an evaluation tool. Kind of, where is this team at? What does it need? What is it lacking? And I expect him to be ultra aggressive this offseason, kind of leaving no stone unturned, not just in the free agent market, but maybe being a little bit creative with some of his trades. I'm telling you, this offseason, you are going to have at least two. This is my hot take on the Phillies offseason. You'll have two instances where you get that alert on Twitter or on your cell phone and you say, oh, wow, I can't believe they did this. Like, I think that we're going to see some type of trade that really raises eyebrows, some moves that really kind of say, yo, this is going to be a little bit different this year.
All right, I'm down with that. Are you? I would guess you are looking for a new center fielder as well. I mean, I know Herrera. I don't want to say it was a nice story. I mean, he did better than I guess you can imagine for a guy who didn't play for some reasons that obviously is well known. They don't bring him back, do they?
I would be surprised. I believe it's like a $2.5 or $2 million buyout for him. Maybe they bring him back as a depth guy, as a fourth outfielder. You could do worse from a baseball standpoint, but would you do that at the, $10+ million? I think he's owed over $12 million if they were decide to bring him back. And I just can't see them doing that at that price. I would think that they would prefer the financial flexibility at that point. So, yeah, I mean, I think that in order to acquire the outfielder that you're looking for, it may have to come through the trade market. And, when I kind of hint and say, oh, wow, they did that, I think that there's some unfinished business with the starting rotation. People talk about, oh, they look like they're pretty solid coming back into next year. You have Gibson and Suarez and Wheeler and Nola, and, Eflin will be back at some point. I'm telling you, man, I wouldn't be surprised. And I know it would be selling low, but there's a lot of advanced metrics out there. There are a lot of GMs out there that would probably like to have Aaron Nola. And I just wonder, when you talk about the DNA complexion of a team, if that's not something that they would consider in light of the year that he just had.
Bob, I mean, I know the bullpen was horrible. They blew 30+ saves, and that's way at the top of the list. But Aaron Nola was your opening day starter, and he basically gave you nothing post All-Star break. Why are you not in this race? You're 4.5 out. He's 9-9 with an ERA over 4. You can almost make the argument that your ace, being a fourth starter, essentially, is the reason why you're not where you want to be, because he made the bullpen pitch too much. He forced that bullpen way too many times. And it's not like you're talking about your third or fourth guy. You're talking about your opening day starter who pitched like a fourth or fifth guy. To me, he's at the top of the list why this team did not make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, he's got a 4.63 ERA this season, and he had a handful of starts where he was simply fantastic, right? And so you can't remove that from the sample size. It's unfair to do that. Those starts happen.
Guess what? There's guys who have ERAs in the sixes that pitch against the Phillies, and you have a fantastic start because you have the talent at that level. Right. Everybody pulls one out every once in a while.
You're right, and it kind of lends to my point, which is that if you were to remove those handful of outlier starts, which that's what they were outliers. I mean, he was simply dreadful this season. I mean, we're talking ERAs, like you said, nipping at 6. And, if Wheeler and Nola were 1-2 or 1A, 1B, like it was supposed to be, this team's probably winning the division right now. But instead it was, Wheeler is a 1, a bona fide 1. And then Nola 4, generously 5, really is the way that he pitched this year. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. If you told me I brought him back and he was my 4th or 5th guy, all right. If you're telling me again he's at the top of my rotation, you can't do it again. And it's the same. Again, it goes back to the same core of guys, and he has been a big part of it. He had that year where he was 3rd in the Cy Young. That was 3 years ago. That's the outlier, right? You can't keep waiting for that year to come back.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I would be surprised if he was as bad next year as he was this year. I mean, like I said, there are some numbers there. There are a lot of smart baseball people that say, hey, listen, he was a little bit better than what was produced. But I'm more of a production guy. Like, I'm willing to say, hey, listen, some of the peripheral numbers don't really stack up with his ERA. But at the same time, like, you've got to deliver. And this whole September, how many times this year did he get the ball in the middle of a win streak where you're like, wow, they can really step on a throat here. They can really generate some big time momentum. And he failed to deliver. And that's not just a 2021 thing. That's an every year thing with him. And that just does not play in this city. It especially does not play in this city. So, I think it might be a change of scenery situation for him.
Obviously, the bullpen is a disaster and has been for 4 or 5 years now, the entire Gabe Kapler era and now into the Girardi era. That is a tough one to rebuild because they are such an unknown quantity. How do they go about fixing the bullpen issues if there is a way to do it? Because it seems that they keep going down the same path to do it. Hey, let's sign a veteran guy whose arm blew out 2 years ago and see if he can come back. Nope, that doesn't work. Let's go to Hector Neris. Let him try to show us. Nope, that doesn't work. Like, I feel like they have had the same plan in the bullpen for 4 straight seasons now.
Yeah, I mean, so there's 2 different ways you can go about this. And listen, good bullpens a lot of times are built and guys take flyers and things pan out. Like Jose Alvarado sometimes for teams works out. It really more often than not hasn't for the Phillies. So you can either go out and look at a team that might have a viable late inning arm and make a trade, a team that says, like, we just don't want to take on the salary. We don't feel like that we're going to enter 2022 that competitive. You may try to find a trade partner that way. But what you really have to do is kind of just say, who are some guys that have plus velocity, who maybe didn't have great years in 21 that look like they might stack up when you look at the deeper numbers for bounce back years in 22. And that's what they're going to have to do. And, for me, this bullpen right now, out of the guys that are out there, give me Connor Brogdon. I still think that there's something there. I know that he had injury issues this year. I know that he struggled at times. I still like the upside there. And I know that this is going to sound absolutely insane, but so long as he's not sniffing the 9th inning, I would think long and hard about bringing Hector Neris back and making him one of your guys that you can go to in higher leverage situations in the 6th or 7th, have him pitch multiple innings. But beyond those 2 guys, there's not a lot that I would want to bring back from this current team into next year's group. They're going to have to make this whole thing over again.
Yep, absolutely. Phil Mattingly, what do you know? What's the message there?
With the new player development. Listen, a guy that has some dugout experience, has a baseball pedigree, obviously with his father, has a sports background. Listen, I think that the idea here is taking guys that are highly regarded. San Diego had a tough year this year, but for a while they looked like a real true World Series contender. And you listen around baseball, how highly regarded this guy is, how the Padres have been able to develop talent, how they've been able to use some of that talent to go out and make deals to bring in more win now players. I mean, that's the thing that the Phillies have lacked. And so you just hope that your hiring a guy that has, some upside, a guy that's on the younger side, that's ahead of the curve, that comes from an organization that's had some player development success, and that's what the Phillies have to hope for here.
All right, we will try to untangle the web throughout the offseason. As Bob Wankel says, maybe you'll get 2 alerts on your phone this offseason with some big news. For me, a big one would be Rhys Hoskins no longer here, Aaron Nola no longer here. Those would be 2 big ones. I think Dave Dombrowski wouldn't be afraid to pull the trigger on either one of those 2. All right, Bob, season's been an interesting one, but like all the rest, this one went a little longer, but it finished the same way.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for having me.
It's been a lot of fun, man. Bob Wankel all season long here on the Phils. They have essentially been eliminated from the playoffs. I am Mike Hill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Hey, coming up at 3:40 today in about an hour, a little less than an hour, Sky Guasco, our fantasy football expert from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast, will join us to answer your fantasy football questions. And if you have a fantasy football question for Sky, send it in to us now at 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. We'll get your fantasy football questions up in less than an hour here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.
20 seconds.
The top of the hour, Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. An interesting comment today from Joel Embiid. I'll read it in just a second regarding Ben Simmons, who said, basically, I can't play with Joel Embiid. He doesn't let me play the way that I need to play. Wait till you hear the reaction from Joel Embiid. I'll give you that in just a second. Brought to you by Deborah Hung, Heart and Lung Center. Whether it's your heart, you don't take chances, be sure, demand Deborah.org. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Here you go. This is what Joel Embiid said today when asked about Ben Simmons. He basically said it's borderline disrespectful to the other guys on this team when asked about it. He says, I saw it. I'm not sure. I don't know if it came from him or whatever, but over the past few months, stuff has been put out there. Looking at the reaction of him not being here, I feel like it's fair to assume it's coming from whether it's his agent or perhaps people or whatever. I feel like over the years, the way our team has been built around, you look at last year, the whole starting lineup shot. I was the worst three-point shooter in the starting lineup, and I shot 38% from three. We've always had shooters, and I feel like I can really play with anybody. I can make anybody better on the court. I don't necessarily need shooters, but I feel like over the years, you look like when we signed Al, it's because we needed a stretch five, just to make sure that was there. Most of my career, I've had to kind of step out. Give us some reaction to what he saw.
30 seconds.
Give us some reaction to what he thinks will happen in Philadelphia this weekend against Kansas City. Plus, he's covering Patriots and the Bucs.
20. 10 seconds. 5 seconds.
joins us right now on a Thursday edition of the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks to Johnny G and the Burger Realty team over in Ocean City. Sal Pal, no Friday, but welcome back here on the show. How are you? It really is. And obviously, there's been so many questions about the head coach and the play calling. I mean, really, that was the big theme of the week. It's the first time, calling a game against Atlanta, he looked pretty good. He looked like he accentuated the positives. He got the ball to some playmakers. That looked like a positive. The last 2 weeks, Sal, he looked like a first-time playmaker, and that is something that he was asked about. Did he ever call plays before? Was he given that opportunity in Indianapolis with Frank Reich? So the play caller early on is already getting questioned. Yeah. And the game on Monday night, obviously, Sal, you've been covering the league for a long, long time, and people complained about Andy, didn't run the ball enough. Doug didn't run the ball enough. This coach ran the ball 3 times in a NFL football game the other night. I mean, that's about as unbelievably shocking as we have seen. And we've seen a couple of coaches recently who refused to run the ball. This guy ran it 3 times. How long can that last? Absolutely. And there's some video the other night that ESPN's cameras caught of Nick Sirianni saying it's always him when it was Derek Barnett. So if he doesn't discipline these guys, how do you fix it? Mm-hmm. Well, Sal, we saw quarterbacks struggle last year, and people wondered, was it because of mechanics and footwork, and he loses confidence? Well, he did play with an offensive line that had 13 different iterations. This team is already going to potentially be down 3 starters if Mailata is not ready to go for Sunday, already in the 3rd game of the season. So is that lack of continuity on the line going to carry over to this quarterback? Right. Yeah. Right. Yep. Yep. You're right. Which is right. Sal Pal's with us. Obviously, they got a challenge this week. This Chiefs team's come in, lost 2 straight. They don't defend the run very well. They're 140 yards per game, 160 yards per game they give up on the ground. That's second worst in the league. You got a team that ran the ball 3 times last week, called anyway. So do you anticipate that number going up greatly? And is that their one shot to beat Kansas City? Mm-hmm. Yeah. The track meet is, and it's funny because you mentioned Kelsey. They did a good job against Kittle. They've did a good job in that game, so we'll see how they defend there. But on the flip side, Sal, I think you've said it the last 2 weeks, got to get the tight ends involved. Well, Nick Sirianni's not listening to the Sports Bash, apparently, and that saddens me. Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Sal Paolantonio, by the way, has the assignment of the century. If you listen to Greeny, by the way, you are in Foxborough, and Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski will return as visiting players. So, what is the atmosphere and electricity going to feel like in Foxborough on Sunday night? Will this be maybe the biggest regular season atmosphere that you've ever seen? Oh, wow. That's unbelievable. I did not expect that to be the price. I thought you were going to give me, maybe $1,200 a ticket. What was it? $6,900 a ticket? Oh my gosh! Wow. I would imagine, right? 6,900 for a one-time event. And by the way, Sal, I would imagine that this game is not going to be all that competitive, right? No, I haven't. And, I told you I was in Boston last weekend for Yankees Red Sox. I mean, Yankees Red Sox, Fenway Park. You're thinking that's a ticket right there. This dwarfs that situation. Well, 6,900. I'd like to know what that guy's doing for work because I might need to get into that field. If he's paying 6,900 for the ticket, holy mackerel. So you'll be reporting up there all week, tomorrow, all day long, I'm assuming. Saturday, Sunday, you'll be all over the television with that. And I guess, at what point does Brady, let the moment kind of get him? Does it happen at all? You know Brady pretty well. Does he let this moment capture him at all? I mean, yes, you mentioned driving down that. When he drives that same path that he did for 20 years, at some moment, seeing the faces and going through there, that's got to get you, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Wow. Unbelievable. Sunday Night Football, Sal Powell reporting for ESPN all weekend long from Foxborough. It's Patriots and Buccaneers. You can hear that game on 97.3 ESPN. Also, Eagles Chiefs. You can hear that game right here. Big Red is back. By the way, LaShawn McCoy retired. He will go. He will be honored before the game on Sunday as well. So he got all that happening. But something tells me that Big Red's going to walk out of here with, believe it or not, his 100th career victory as a head coach of the Chiefs. He will have 100 or more victories now with two teams if he gets this game on Sunday against Philadelphia. Big one, a lot of good ones. Cowboys, Carolina, that should be fun. Some other good games all around. Sal Paolantonio right here. Johnny G, the Burger Realty team in Ocean City. Always a pleasure to have him on. Thanks to those guys over there. All right, Sal, enjoy the game. All right, Sal Powell, Thursday, right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Sal Powell jumping on a special Sal Powell Thursday because he is taking over the airwaves on the TV tomorrow at our normal Sal Powell Friday segment. So we appreciate him there on the Sports Bash. This hour brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. Choose better banking and get great rates on loans, refinancing, and credit cards. Free or low-cost financial products and friendly personal service. Visit JerseyShoreFCU.org for more information. When we come back, Jeff Nadu will tell us how to bet tonight's game between the Jags and the Bengals. I actually like this game from a betting standpoint. Plus, there's a college game tonight that I like as well. How to bet the weekend action. Jeff Nadu goes through the card, the big games, all coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
30 seconds, Mike.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, live at Chickies and Pete's Thursday edition. Tomorrow, we are live on location at the LPGA in Galloway at the Seaview. Stop on out and see us there. We have a lot of games to go over. There's one tonight in the NFL. There's a college game as well. We're going to go over that now. Jeff Nadu will join us here to talk a little bit about the games, what's on his mind, a lot of interesting storylines in this game. I actually like the game tonight, Jeff, on a Thursday. It's a terrible game. Like there's, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, putrid. But I actually like the game from a betting standpoint tonight. You in on this game at all?
I'm in it a little. I got 45.5. I played an over. I just, this is kind of an auto bet for me. I've kind of been picking on the Jags just with their defense. One thing I do like about them on offense is they do throw the football a lot. I know it's not been great. I know Trevor's thrown some interceptions, but they're throwing the ball about 68% of the time, which is one of the highest in the NFL. I think they're always going to be on the front foot trying to score, kind of like a light version of the Lions, if you will. I think defensively they're really bad, and I think the Burrow and the Bengals are going to go up and down the field. I am concerned as well, Mike, with the Bengals injury situation. Awuzie and Bates, both secondary players to them, look like are going to be out tonight. So I think there's some points in this game. You look at the primetime games, 8 of 9 have went over. So I think we see some offense, kind of like a 31-21 type of game here.
It's funny because the Thursday night game, Jeff, used to always be an underplay. I mean, it used to be sloppy, ugly games. This one opened at 47. It's, 45.5 some places. So the number's actually going down. And I kind of agree with you. I think this is kind of a shootout.
Yeah, and one thing about Cincinnati that I've been pretty impressed with through three games is this has been a team that it seems I've always they've moved the ball, but they never punched the football in the end zone. 83% of their possessions in the red zone have resulted in a touchdown, which you want to see. I think Jacksonville sooner or later are going to start moving the ball a little bit. I do like their weapons a little bit with Chenault and a couple of those guys. So I think they can get into the 20s here and get this game over the number.
Yeah, 7.5 is the number. It opened at 2.5. It's now 7.5. Cincinnati. I mean, how much is that? Because, and this is where, them beating Pittsburgh last week, how much does that number get driven up by that?
Yeah, and Mike, and that's a good point. But Pittsburgh's not a good football team, so I don't put that much stock into that game. Also, there are betting profiles that I want to bet and I don't want to bet. And look, I'll just be honest. Cincinnati's not a team I'm running to lay a touchdown, with ever, frankly.
Right.
Throw in the fact that, they've been an okay favorite over the last couple of seasons, but they don't lay points often, and they especially don't lay over a touchdown often. So,
yep, I know that it's not the greatest game in the world tonight, but there is a little bit of betting interest. 7.5 the number, so you got a big number for a Bengals team. They are 2-1, but traditionally you can't trust that team. And as we mentioned, 45.5 is the total number. So if you like that, I think both Jeff and I kind of like. I that to me is the play. You got to go over in this game.
It's funny. Trevor Lawrence is over a 2-1 favorite to throw an interception in this game. So, I got to tell you, Mike, I don't hate taking a shot with no. I think there's going to be a game where he's going to play pretty well. I don't love Cincinnati's secondary, so I might take a little shot plus 164 that he does not throw a pick tonight.
Okay. All right. There you go. A little prop bet for you. The college game tonight. We'll look at some more NFL plays because, I mean, obviously there's a really good card in the NFL. There's some interesting storylines. There's some good plays. But the college game tonight, you got Miami and Virginia. So this one opened 2.5. It's 5.5. BetMGM 4.5. Pretty much everywhere else. I mean, Miami's quarterback situation is terrible. Virginia can typically score. So do you have any intrigue in the Thursday night college ACC action?
Look, I think either way, I obviously would like King in there, but I'm willing to believe that I think Tyler Van Dyke can move the football against Virginia. This is a bad defense. That's been pretty evident in their first 3 or 4 games. They give up 59 to North Carolina, give a lot of points they seek to wake. I think Miami will move the ball regardless of who they have. Keep in mind as well, Mike, the best player on Miami is Cameron Harris, the running back. This Virginia team is giving up like 7.5 yards a carry. So I also think that Virginia is going to move the ball because they throw the ball more than anyone in the country. They need to just find the end zone, which is something that they missed out once or twice on last week and weren't able to get into the 30s like I thought they would. They need to finish drives. That's going to be more important to this team. But I lean over. I have a hard time not leaning it over here. Both these defenses, I think, aren't very good. I think the total, if it's in the low 60s, I'd have some interest in it over.
All right, Tuesday, you said you jumped on the Eagles quickly. That game is at 7 right now. It opened at 8.5. It's at 7 right now. You still like that number?
Mike, DraftKings, there's a guy on Twitter, Julian Edlow. He tweets out the betting splits on each game. Who's betting what?
Yep.
98% of the handle so far is on the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay. This is going to be a very heavily bet game. Answer me this, Mike. Why did this number drop to 7?
Well, you said early Tuesday, if you were listening to our segment on Tuesday, sharp money came in, drove that number down automatically off the bat, and they're trying to now get people to bet the other way.
And that's
not happening.
And that's what happens. I mean, this is going to be everyone's going to bet the Chiefs here. There are probably a couple smart people like me that took the Eagles. Mike, I think a couple days later, we obviously have seen what has happened in this town and in this general area. Nick Sirianni has been very much put under the microscope. There is no other idea, Mike, than to run the football this week. It's that simple.
Have to.
You have to run the football. This is one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL. And, Mike, for as bad as the Eagles have been against the run, they're still only giving up about 3.8 yards a carry, which is pretty good with all intents and purposes. I think at the end of the day, you've got to keep the ball in Mahomes' hands. That's the easiest way to stay in a game against Kansas City. Mike, I'll ask you this as well. For as bad as Eagles' defense is, I still think it's better than Kansas City's. Here's the two things I bet on this game. I took the Eagles at 7.5. Miles, this is the best play of the weekend. Miles Sanders over 55.5 yards. If he can get the edge, he might hit that in one play. They will have to run the football. I know what you're going to say, Mike. What about the offensive line? I know we have injuries up front, but Landon Dickerson should have been a first-round pick. I think Dillard's capable. I don't hate Herbig. It's not ideal, okay? It's not the greatest offensive line in the world, but I don't love this defense for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Sanders gets into the 70s or 80s. 55.5 is too low.
Okay, those are some good ones for you. Miles Sanders over 55.5 rushing. I like that one as well. Tampa Bay, New England opened at 3. It's up to 7. Some places going higher. I mean, this one feels like everybody's going Tampa. So what do I do?
Yeah, everyone is going Tampa. And look, I got to tell you, Mike, I don't hate New England. I know that you obviously are going to want to be on the side of the bookmaker in this game, and that's New England. But, keep in mind, I mean, home dog getting more than 7 points. We know their defense is pretty good, right? I get a feeling Mac Jones can keep them in this football game. I don't love their skill position guys, but Mike, if I asked you who the worst pass defense in the NFL was, who would you guess?
The worst pass defense in the NFL right now.
Given up per game, yeah.
I'd be probably surprised. I was going to guess, say, like Pittsburgh or Baltimore.
Tampa's
they've had a lot of – they signed Richard Sherman. Yeah, I probably should have thought about that.
Yeah, they're giving up over 400 yards a game. This defense just isn't good, okay? It's just that simple. In the secondary especially, they're very young in the secondary. And, look, that's a concern in this game. I think Mac Jones can move the ball. I think he's a guy that can find the end zone and keep them in this game. It's not easy. I mean, New England's got to start punching the ball in the end zone. They're dead last in scoring percentage as far as touchdowns. They've got to find a way to convert some of those. I think they can this week. I think New England would be the play, and I would be playing against Kansas City. It is going to be a burial on both Kansas City and Tampa this week.
All right, yeah, I know there's going to be a huge amount of money coming in on that game. So it's probably going to be that number. Keep an eye on it because it's probably going to go all over the place because so many – it's a standalone game. Public's going to bet it. Tampa Bay's coming off of a loss. You got all that probably factoring into an emotional bet for people. All right, Jeff,
Mike,
they do. Yep.
Real quick, one other thing back to the Eagles quickly. The other key in this game for them, we've seen Sirianni struggle with this, scoring a touchdown in the red zone. Kansas City is allowing a touchdown on 92% of their defensive possessions to opposite opponents. So you have to convert. I think
Definitely.
if they can get the run game going, they have a shot to win this football game. I really do.
All right, before we roll, I want to see your favorite college plays of the weekend. Jeff Nadu.
One of the games I've already played is Toledo against UMass. Did I mention this on Tuesday to you, Mike? I don't
No,
think
you did not. Nope.
I'm going to mention it to you now.
I didn't know UMass still had a football team, so no.
They do. They're one of the worst teams in the country, and they're still out there. They're playing a Toledo team, Mike, there's a lot to like about. This team was very good in that game against Notre Dame. Remember that. They have a great offense. They can run and move the football through the air. Defensively, they're actually much better than the years past. They were stout last week against Ball State, one of their MAC opponents. Mike, the concern in this game for a lot of people is going to be when you lay a big number like 27.5, which is what I laid. The question is, what happens in the fourth quarter when they remove their quarterback, Carter Bradley? Mike, I know Toledo in and out. Their backup quarterback is a guy called Daquan Finn. Daquan Finn is not Michael Vick, but he sure damn looks like Michael Vick with the football in his hands. This guy is powerful, he's fast, and he can put points on the board. He's a very good second option for them if they go to their backup quarterback. I think he can move the ball for them, keep this offense moving, keep that clock running, and put points on the board. I think they roll away and win in this game 48-13.
All right, there you go. Toledo, 27.5 over UMass. Who knew they played football there? All right, Jeff Nadu is back on Tuesday when the lines are back out for week 5 of the NFL and college football. Jeff, thanks, man.
Thank you, Mike. Talk to you next week. See you later.
Yeah, man. There he goes. Jeff Nadu here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, it is time to help you set your fantasy football lineup. Get your fantasy football questions into me right now. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Sky Guasco is here from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, answering your fantasy football questions. If you have a fantasy football question for week 4, text it in now, 609-403-0973. Download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play, and you can message us through the phone, or, of course, if you're watching the show live, streaming on our YouTube channel. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash.
30 seconds.
All right, Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. We are live at Chickies and Pete's here in Atlantic City. Time for the Fantasy Fix here with Sky Guasco from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. The Fantasy Fix each week is brought to you by the Piccalilli Inn, your best pick in South Jersey's, for South Jersey's best wings, Route 206 in Shamong. They give you the Fantasy Fix right now with Sky Guasco from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast, who's back for another week answering your fantasy football questions. We've already got a record number of questions from the last couple. We've got more questions now than we've had the last couple of weeks already. So if you want to try to get yours in, 609-403-0973. But let's see what we got here. Let's get a couple thoughts from Sky before we get to your fantasy football questions. What's going on, man?
Hey, Mike, great to have you. Appreciate you having me back on, man. It's been a great few weeks. Got a couple injuries to deal with. AB coming off the COVID. Of course, the Bucks and Patriots, big game. I'm excited, man. We're full swing at this point.
All right, let's get a couple of top headlines before we get to the questions. One, Julio Jones. What are we doing with him, man? Used to be a WR1. Kind of been quiet. What's the play?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Julio is one of my favorite players ever, certainly in the modern times. Wide receiver 45 in PPR right now, 10.8 PPR fantasy points per game. Doubtful for week 4. Do we give up on him? No. Do we temper expectations? Yes. Do you expect him to be Julio anymore? Probably not. However, A.J. Brown is also hurt and out this week, maybe more. And we saw Julio go for 6 catches, 128 yards, and should have had a touchdown, in my opinion, maybe another one as well just 2 weeks ago. So don't move off Julio just yet. I think he's bouncing back, but unfortunately, injuries have plagued him.
Now, I was a big fan of Kyle Pitts. I know a lot of people who jumped on him early in drafts thinking they got this guy. You know, sometimes you go get that top profile tight end early in your draft, like a Kelsey or a Kittle. But some people put Pitts in that category. So what's going on with Pitts? Is he going to start to break out soon?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that was premature, Mike. There was all summer I was kind of tempering that notion simply because in fantasy football specifically, rookie tight ends rarely actually cut their teeth in the first year. He's tight end 15 right now in PPR. Unfortunately, Atlanta's offense just looks absolutely dreadful right now. Pitts is an outlier athletically. We know that. He's going to be great soon and for a long time. But it hasn't happened yet and clicked in Atlanta. Just 3 targets in week 3, but he had 8 and 6 in weeks 1 and 2, respectively. It is coming, but I would just hold on. If you jump the gun, though, I think you were premature, unfortunately. But in Dynasty, he's a must-have.
All right, what about the Denver running back situation? How are we handling that? Can I even play one?
You can. Melvin Gordon, surprisingly to me, I was a Javonte Williams guy, another rookie, and I just figured he would take over, which I think he will eventually, but hasn't yet. Melvin Gordon, surprisingly, running back 10 in PPR. Javonte Williams, 34 running back. You could play Melvin Gordon as an RB2 and Javonte as a flex with upside. I've personally been playing Javonte Williams as my flex. In a couple leagues I have to. We start an extra running back, and it's worked out so far. He had a touchdown last week, should have had 2 other ones, did fumble on the goal line. We'll see what happens if they put him in the doghouse like some teams do. But let's not forget, Melvin Gordon ripped off that 70-yarder in week 2. Otherwise, Melvin Gordon's 42 carries, 193 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Javonte Williams, 39 carries, 138, and 1. So they're almost identical, and Javonte has been more efficient.
Sky Guasco from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast. We'll answer your questions in just a second. What about George Kittle, man? Are we starting to worry there?
Yeah, that's my guy. I'm a Niners fan here, and this just kind of comes with the nature, unfortunately. Last year, we saw a big breakout when he was healthy 2 years ago as well, but didn't have Ayuk. Debo wasn't healthy at the time. He's still tight end 6, Mike. I know a lot of people are stressing here, but tight end's tough. If you're not talking about Kelsey, Waller, Hawkinson, Andrews, the rest of these guys are tough here. So it's not flashy. He does get it done, but he doesn't score touchdowns. That's the biggest issue at tight end. 5 targets, 4 targets, 9 targets last week versus Green Bay. You got to ride the wave or sell up for maybe a Hawkinson. Otherwise, I'm just going to stay put with Kittle. Unfortunately, he's too good of a blocker, Mike, so they keep him in for that run game, but he's obviously excellent with the ball in his hands.
Okay, can Cooper Kupp keep this up? Is he a guy? I mean, I think most people drafted him maybe as a wide receiver 3.
Oh,
but
steal.
You got it, right? I mean, if you got him now, you got to keep playing. Can he keep this up, though? You're going to keep counting on, I guess, him, like Tyler Lockett's another one. These two guys have been bonkers.
Yeah, Mike Williams is in that conversation as well. Last year, let's not forget, Stephon Diggs, who finished overall wide receiver 1 in some formats, top 3, was a 7th-round pick. Cooper Kupp, absolutely, I think he can keep this up. He's wide receiver 1 in all formats. He's the number 1 overall player in PPR formats, leads the NFL in receiving yards, dominating all over the field and after the catch. Matt Stafford loves him. That's important. He's 2nd in targets, 3rd in red zone targets, 4th in target share and target rate, 1st in the NFL in receiving touchdowns, reception yards, and receptions, and fantasy points per game. I would trade maybe for Devontae Adams, but that's it. Otherwise, I'm riding the wave. He was top 4 just 2 years ago when he was healthy. Cooper Kupp's the real deal.
Okay, we got a lot of questions. Let's get to them now for Sky and PPR. Boyd, Marvin Jones, Pascal, Tim Patrick need one.
I'm going to go with Tyler Boyd here. T. Higgins out again this week. He had a nice bump. I'm going to go with T. Higgins.
All right, Daniel Jones or Sam Darnold. That guy sounds like he has some lousy QBs.
Yeah, 2 QB league there. Daniel Jones or Sam Darnold, you're obviously streaming. I'm going to go with Sam Darnold. He's looked great. 2 300-yard games in his first 3. He had 4 in 38 career games with the Jets. I'm going to ride Sammy D.
All right, John from the Crest says, love the show, guys. Running back question, PPR. Saquon, Henry, Hubbard, and Henderson need 2. I think that one's kind of obvious, right?
Yeah, Henry's automatic, obviously, especially with the running backs out. He might have 300 yards in this game, to be honest with you, against the Jets. You got to go with Saquon. He looked great. I've been hesitant, but he looked good. A couple nice runs. Going up against the Saints is a tough matchup. I'm not going to lie, but you got to play the talent. Hope he gets in the end zone. Play Saquon and Henry, of course.
He adds Hubbard, Henderson, or left. Should he use one of those as a flex?
Yeah, absolutely. Henderson, he may play, but Sony Michel's getting more work. They obviously pass a lot, so I might go with Hubbard here. With CMC out another game, the offense is going to run through him. Royce Freeman will be involved, but I would go Hubbard as a flex.
All right, here we go. Let's go to PPR, Woods, Boyd, Corey Davis, Cortland Sutton. 2.
Oh, man, this is tough. I want to start Robert Woods, but you just can't. He's been below a wide receiver 40 so far. I hope he snaps out of it, but I don't know if that's this week. Cortland Sutton's the number 1 there in Denver. I'm riding him for sure. Corey Davis, I'm not feeling great about. And I'm sorry, Mike, who was the 4th one there?
The 4th one, Cortland Sutton.
And who was the other one?
Woods, Boyd. Sorry.
Got it. Let's go Boyd tonight against Jacksonville.
All right, there you go. Moss, Hines, Emmanuel Sanders, 0.5 PPR. They need a flex.
I'm going to go with Manny Sanders here. Caught a couple deep touchdowns last week. He had been getting the targets. He just wasn't able to capitalize recently, but he is now. Josh Allen looks like himself from last year, so let's go with Emmanuel Sanders.
All right, fantasy football question here is, do I flex Hollywood Brown or Will Fuller? Either one of those worthy of putting in a lineup this week.
I'm going to go with Hollywood Brown, and I don't like either one of these guys. They kind of make me nervous. They're the same player. They're both deep threats. They're both 3 catches a game, and you hope for a deep touchdown. But Hollywood Brown has played great for the last 10 games dating back to last year. He dropped 3 would-be touchdowns last week. Definitely 2 of them. I think he gets right this week. Also, Will Fuller, on another deep pass, came up with somewhat of a knee injury, and he'll play this week. But I just don't believe in Jacoby Brissett, so I'm going to take Hollywood Brown.
All right. What about the situation in Minnesota? Madison there. Are you worried when Dalvin Cook returns?
No. If Dalvin Cook is playing, I will take 60% of Dalvin Cook over almost every other running back in fantasy football. He might get a little bit more work with Madison there, but Madison's unusable starting-wise. This is not a Pollard-Zeke situation. I've talked about this all week on my podcast. This is not Pollard and Zeke. They're not going to split work. If Cook is healthy, he's the guy. Madison will get a couple spelling touches. But if Cook is playing, Cook is the spot, and you sit Madison. Obviously, If Cook is out, you can play Madison.
All right, Sky Guasco from the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast on the Believe Podcast Network. The floor is yours. Your favorite plays, some waiver wire guys that need to be in the lineup, whatever you got, go.
All right, I got a couple sleepers here for you. I'll blast through these as quickly as I can for you. At quarterback, if you're streaming, I love Derek Carr versus the Chargers, leads the NFL in passing yards. The Raiders, surprisingly, 3-0. I love my Chargers. I love Justin Herbert, but I'm riding the wave with Derek Carr in fantasy. Najee Harris, not really a sleeper, but people are down on him. 19 targets last week with Juju out. Deontay Johnson comes back, but Najee is the focal point of this offense. Henderson and Sony Michel. Whoever plays and is the starter, I'm okay to play them as a flex. I know I just answered against that on one of your questions with the other players, but against Arizona, I'm okay with that. Either one of those guys in half or standard leagues. And then Peyton Barber, ride the wave, I guess, in standard leagues or half PPR against the Chargers. Lead back for the Raiders, 100+ yards, touchdown upside. Wide receivers, Antonio Brown coming off of the COVID list against the Patriots. Gronk, AB, and Brady, I think, are going to go nuts in this game just out of spite. Play them in DFS, play them in fantasy football. Tim Patrick, the number 2 for the Broncos, with KJ Hamler going out for the season with a torn ACL and Judy still out against Baltimore. 2 touchdowns in 3 games. And if you're streaming tight end, Mike Gesicki, 12 targets in week 3. Some streaming DSTs, Saints versus the Giants, Titans versus the Jets, Washington football team at Atlanta.
There you go. By the way, you got games tonight. Make sure if you have players from Jacksonville, God bless you, in Cincinnati, get them in the lineup. I do have, I always have this problem, man. I got Chase, Mike Williams, Lockett, Jefferson. I always got to sit one of those guys. I never know what to do. Chase, though, he's been the guy. I've sat Chase every single week.
Yeah, that's tough. And with Higgins out, I think you got to ride the wave of Chase. In this Jacksonville, they just traded away too their best defender in CJ Henderson. They just traded him. So you got to go with Chase. Honestly, I would sit Lockett. I know that doesn't feel good, but if it's not for the big plays, I think DK is ascending, and Tyler Lockett got rolled up in his ankles last week. He may not be 100%. So that could backfire on me.
30 seconds.
But I'm going to go with Lockett out.
All right, there you go. We'll do it again next week. Sky Guasco. Make sure you check him out at Sky Guasco, Guasco. The Candlestick
20
Kids
seconds.
Fantasy Football podcast is on the Believe Podcast Network, and he's back on Thursday. All right, Sky, have a great week, man.
Thanks, buddy. Good luck, everybody.
All right, there you go. A lot of questions
10
this
seconds.
week for Sky. Sorry if we didn't get to yours. We'll do it again next week when we come back. It's Football at 4
5.
with Adam Caplan here next.
Coming back next, Mike.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. There's Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast as the Eagles getting ready to take on Andy Reid's Chiefs. And the Andy Reid Chiefs coming in losers of 2 straight. Not an optimal situation for Nick Sirianni's bunch, coming off kind of a butt kicking on Monday night. This is probably not the week they would pick to play the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, would it be, Adam?
Yeah, but it always comes down to matchups. That's all the extraneous stuff won't matter. It's going to come down to how they match up. The Eagles do not match up well at all, Mike, against the Chiefs. Particularly that zone defense, the Eagles play more zone defense by far than any other NFL team. They only play man about 9% of the time, which is unheard of in today's NFL, which means you're going to see a lot of Travis Kelce underneath, a lot of Tyreek Hill crossing routes. They're going to give that up. The Eagles try not to give anything deep. So unless Jonathan Gannon completely changes his defense, that's what you're going to get on Sunday.
Yeah, let's look at the Eagles' tape on the defensive side of the ball. Some of the things you heard this week in terms of the lack of pre-snap disguise. They talked about it a lot on the broadcast, especially if you're watching the Manning cast. I mean, those two were having a field day watching Jonathan Gannon's defense. What did you hear this week about the way pre-snap the Eagles' defense looked?
All right, so, Mike, let's get started on defense. Save, like, occasional pressure. They didn't pressure Dak Prescott a lot. I mean, he didn't have to throw a lot because their run defense was awful. They gave up 77 yards to 2 running backs in the first quarter. You know it was going to be a long night. But the run fits were very poor. They got blown off the ball, which is something I'd heard last night. Was just one person who had graded the Eagles tape said it's just he hadn't seen anything like this in a long time with an Eagles defense. It was embarrassing. They got outcoached. They got outplayed. The scheme was poor. The run fits were poor. The linebackers were terrible in the run game because they weren't protected. You also made mistakes on the run game. And the lack of pre-snap disguise, it was ridiculous. I don't quite understand this because the thing that we're learning, Mike, about this defense is, yes, they're playing. We had reported first back in February they're going to be a zone defense and play a front where it's read and react. That's totally what they do. But we're not getting what we were told. The other part what we're not getting is this pre-snap disguise, not nearly as much as we thought. There was next to nothing in this game. I don't understand it. It makes you wonder about Patrick Mahomes. What is going to be Jonathan Gannon's approach in this game? Because the approach was abominably bad in this past game.
It feels like, last year everybody went to the linebackers. It felt like this game, a lot of people looked at the linebackers, including the Dallas Cowboys, and they said, if you're going to play those safeties back, we're going to challenge those 2 guys. And they were not up for the challenge. So the linebackers eaten up in the run game. Yeah,
badly. And also in the pass game, there are things because you're playing 2 safeties so deep. I had a joke with Mosher on a show that dropped on Wednesday. I was like, if they're going to keep them so deep, why don't they bring Chris Maragos back to play 30 yards back? If you remember, Chris Maragos, when he was only a special teamer, but one season because they lost a bunch of safeties, he had to play safety. So what they did is they just kept him back, all the way back like he was returning a kick. It was real or a punt. It was pretty funny. But, yeah, look, Gannon's going to have to change things up here. You have the talents you have at linebacker. They're not bringing anyone back, and you just have to live with it. That's kind of where they are, Mike, right now on defense.
Defensive line, how did what was the read of how they handled it without Brandon Graham? What did they do to replace Graham? What did they kind of do to fill his snaps? How did they go about that?
It's really weird. Like, first of all, there's things that are happening. Like, I don't understand. Like, you extend Josh Sweat's contract, but you don't start him. You start Milton Williams. Now, Waves explained to me was Milton Williams is a little bit more stout. Like, I know he doesn't have Josh Sweat's arm length. He's about 3.5 inches short per arm, but he's wider. Okay, but that didn't work. Josh Sweat is a veteran player now. And by the way, he's not a bad run defender. That, in fact, his first year with the Eagles, he was actually only playing on base downs. They didn't even use him as a pass rusher because they didn't cut quite. They were trying to figure out what he was when they got him at 18. It's really weird. So basically, Ryan Kerrigan was not even at a tackle. He was playing a ton of snaps. Because of Graham's absence, he's not really playing stand-up linebacker anymore. He's playing basically with his hand down, a little bit standing up, but it's just not working. I don't know how they're going to get to Patrick Mahomes. To Mahomes is it. By the way, Mahomes is playing well, but not great. He's not playing his usual elite level. He's a little bit indecisive with the football. So I'll be interested to see what Gannon's approach is going to be. He's got the 3 DNs, and that's really it. And then Fletcher Cox said after the game that he wasn't feeling well. That might help explain why their run defense was so bad. But Cox apparently lost a bunch of weight, and he needs to get his strength back.
So the defense obviously has their handful this week. They got a Tampa Bay team that, is coming off the 2 losses. They're going to look to exploit this team all over the place. You just kind of outlined. Offensively, though, a lot of things to get into. Let's start at the top.
Hour.
Right. Let's start at the top of the tape list with Jalen Hurts struggled. Why did he struggle in this game? If you look at the completion and the yards, you would say, okay, he played pretty well. But what's the tape say?
No, it's funny because I'm watching the game, right? And I'm like, okay, he's not playing well, but he's not playing that badly. I've always said this, never, ever evaluate a quarterback through TV tape. It's got to be through the All-22, which you can see at NFL.com. They do have it up there, the end zone shot, the silence shot. So very indecisive with the football, bailed from the pocket way too early. This is an issue for him. Save the Arizona game where he played really well. Hurts just played like a guy that had not played a lot at the NFL level. This is only his 7th start. These are the kind of things young quarterbacks do. Unfortunately, it's not acceptable. I'm just telling you what happened because there's some people who are not happy with us saying we were trying to make excuses for him. We weren't. We're just explaining to you how NFL people look at these situations.
Right.
We try to, no, what happened was my people, when we dropped that show, said that we were making excuses for Hurts. We weren't. We're explaining to you that he played poorly. We're sugarcoating it, but the tape showed exactly what he was doing. He bailed from the pocket. His accuracy was off. In fact, accuracy is not just his percentage. It's the pass placement. Are you throwing the pass target the ball to make them go get it? You do not want to slow these receivers and tight ends on the route. And he did that way too much in this game.
I want to get your thoughts on what people said about the run game because Nick Sirianni's saying, well, RPOs, that's our run game. So when the ends comes in, the run gets taken away. So why the lack of runs? Is he right?
He's not right. There were opportunities to run the football. They decided not to do it. And here's the problem with all of that. You could put Hurts under center. There's nothing wrong with doing it. I understand they're running more of a college offense. That's what someone with the Niners told me. That was their tape study, that they clearly are running a college offense. Okay, but it doesn't mean you can't put him under center because right now Hurts was so bad in this game. You need to help him. And I'm not a run game guy. I'm a pass game guy, particularly in the first half because analytics will tell you the more you throw in the first half, the better off you are. But you know what? Analytics does not account to how the quarterback is playing. Hurts did not play well. Throw the numbers out. The tape showed he played poorly. What Sirianni should have done is hand off the ball. It could have been a 60-40 split in the first half. I would have been fine with that. That's about the league average. It's between 57 and 60% pass. I'm fine with that. But it was embarrassing. Miles Sanders, 2 carries in the entire game. By the way, it was only 20-7 at halftime. Sirianni's way off his game. He just didn't have a good game. Sirianni's got to look at himself. He didn't do a good job, and he didn't help his quarterback who struggled mightily.
And it was a 2-score game in the third quarter, too. I know it felt like it was different, but they were within 2 scores in that third quarter. That being said, I feel like we keep asking, why aren't the tight ends involved? They are your 2 veteran guys. They are your dependable guys. The wide receivers, tight ends, but the tight ends specifically seems like there is room there. They got yards. The middle is open. They're not going to them.
Yeah, and it's been more of a receiver-centric offense. That's something we didn't know coming into the season. The crazy thing is The word Jeff Mosher and I got was that this is going to be a tight end centric team, that these coaches raved when they first got there about Goddard specifically. And he looked good. Look, the 30-yard catch and run was terrific. I don't understand it. I know that the game plan got away from Sirianni and the quarterback struggling and all that, but Goddard's a major mismatch, and that's just bad coaching. The offensive structure absolutely has to be in question. Again, I don't know what they're doing. It's an offense, Mike. We could call it college offense, but okay, you can do that. But the structure of it is poor, and it's not working. And Sirianni's got to start with himself, and he needs some help from his coaches.
Well, it doesn't help that he's going to be down possibly 3 offensive linemen this week. Mailata, we're not sure of, obviously, yet, but I would imagine he's not going to play. You know your left guard's out. You know your right guard's out. So how does that affect – it affected play calling last year with all the injuries on the offensive line. How will the offensive line affect them this week?
It's interesting with Nate Herbig starting now. I know he's not an athlete. I get it. Dickerson, by the way, Dickerson was not bad last week. He was kind of up and down, but he wasn't bad. Their line was surprisingly held up. See, I had thought watching the game that maybe the offensive line didn't play well. That's why Hurts was moving so much, but that had nothing to do with it. They were okay. Dickerson and Herbig, you would expect Dickerson in his second start this week to be better. The Chiefs front is good, not great. The Chiefs are bad against the run. That's been a real problem for them. If this is not a Miles Sanders game, I literally will throw my hands up and say, I have no idea what they're doing. That's kind of where I'm at with this offense.
All right. The penalties are obviously a problem. Now, there is some video of Sirianni saying it's always him in regards to Barnett getting called.
Yeah.
He tried to downplay it. Well, it's not, it's not. How do you discipline these guys? And people say, well, this is an undisciplined team. How do you fix an undisciplined team?
Well, first of all, let's start with Barnett. What you can do is you could take him off the field, not play him in the first quarter. The problem is because you're down Brandon Graham, who's your best run defensive end for the season, you're down in bodies. So, you could play Teron Jackson if you want. That's really not what you want to do, but you could discipline him that way. But there's the coaches will tell you there's a fine line between disciplining a player and hurting your football team. And it's really, really difficult. It's really difficult. It's not good. Not good at all. You can play Jernard Avery at the end if you want to, but in the end, it's just not going to work. And he's going to have to play. I personally would sit him out the first quarter because I know coaches have done that to players they needed to discipline.
Well, obviously, his penalties come in some big spots. That was a 3rd down and 8. He gets the penalty. It goes to 3rd and 3. They end up getting the 3rd down conversion on. It was an 8-yard play they got, and then they ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive. Who knows? They were kind of, hanging on there, and that penalty kind of made you feel like, here we go again. Andy Reid's in town, and obviously this is a tough matchup here. So what is something, if Philadelphia is to win this game, Adam, what is something that they can do to make it interesting?
Run the ball. And again, to be clear, I don't like running the football. I've been brainwashed by my friend Joe Banner when we worked at ESPN, and he's right. He's definitely right. But the problem is, Joe and I do not agree on one point. You have to look at who your quarterback is. If this was an accomplished quarterback 3 or 4 years in the league, and he had a couple bad games, keep throwing the football. I'm good with it. This is not the case. This is not the case. And run the football with Sanders. The other thing is, where's the screen game with Kenny Gainwell? He had 1.
Yep.
We need to see that. That's the coach's problem. The head coach, Sirianni, who calls the plays, has got to help his quarterback. And then the other thing is Gannon must do a better job with his scheme. What the hell was that in that last game? Oof.
That was terrible. I said same thing you said. I said Prescott undressed him the other night. He was having a field day with them. But just what you said, Adam, the game plan in week 1, they accentuated the positives of his personnel, bubble screens, got the ball to guys in space. Where has that been? It needs to be back this Sunday. You can hear the game right here live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Adam. Good stuff, man.
Thanks, man. See you.
It's an ugly tape to watch, but he broke it down for you pretty good right there for Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Don't forget Football at 4 each week or each day here on the Sports Bash is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Hey, coming up at 4:40 today. I will do my Fine 5, Ugly 5. Since yesterday I was not on the air to give my Fine 5, Ugly 5, I will do my NFL Fine 5, Ugly 5 coming up at 4:40 today. I do want to keep it here and get into some of the things that have been said today by Joel Embiid. I mean, I have people coming up to me here at Chickies and Pete's saying, have you heard what Embiid said? And I'm like, yeah, I just haven't had the chance to really dive into it a little deeper. But what Joel Embiid said today, all right, this is really, I thought Joel Embiid, who's going to handle this thing kind of like, hey, we need Ben. He's important. We need him to win. We're a better team with Ben. That's kind of the way he's been playing this thing. Today, Joel Embiid essentially already has hit the breaking point. We had wondered, Ben Simmons isn't here. And his teammates are going to have to keep answering questions and keep answering questions and keep answering questions. The primary motivation for Ben Simmons is that he wants to find a team that would build an offense around him. Right? That's what basically he is suggesting. Today, Joel Embiid essentially said, that's all we've been doing here, dude. Now, you might not like some of the results and some of the guys they got, but as Joel Embiid kind of indicated, they're not building an offense around me. They're building the offense around you. Why? Because you refuse to shoot. And that is why we need to bring in Al Horford. Now, you might say, why the hell would you bring in Al Horford? Well, because the Sixers looked at him as kind of a stretch five. Elton Brand built this kind of bully ball type of team. But if you remember, Brett Brown, what did he always say? We are hunting threes. Brett Brown didn't want this bully ball sized roster. He wanted the team that he had in 2018. He had Ilyasova. He had Marco Bellinelli. He had Robert Covington. He wanted a team that was built for Ben Simmons, right? Drive, kick, three, shoot, bang. And they got away from that when they went with Al Horford and they went with that bigger, quote unquote, bully ball style of play. And Joel Embiid essentially today said, we have built that team for you. I'm the worst three-point shooter we have, but I have to go out there and shoot threes because you're unwilling to. He says, and I don't mind. I'm willing to do it. But it was essentially like Joel Embiid took it kind of personal today. He took it as if, how dare you say your style of play doesn't mesh with me? Like, how do you think I feel? That I have to go out and shoot threes? I have to do all this stuff that I really don't want to do to appease you. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Look, league sources have been kind of saying they don't get the sense that the Sixers are close to trading Simmons or that they are or have been. They are not, especially the Sixers, in my opinion or anybody's opinion that I've talked to, interested in any package that will have draft picks. The Sixers want players that can help them win today. And there has been some thought now that the Sixers would like to, if they want him, if they end up moving him, that they would move him to a Western Conference team. Now, if you've watched the Sixers practice and training camp the last, 3 days, Tyrese Maxey has basically been the lead point guard. But here's the problem. They don't really have, I was talking about this last night. Whether you like Ben Simmons or do not like Ben Simmons, okay? You hate Ben Simmons. He's the worst player. Fine. This team struggles mightily when he is not there to run their offense. And they do not have anybody on the current roster to run the offense. They are a 500 team when he does not play. Why? They don't have anybody to get them in their offense. They don't have anybody in the half court. As much as his half court game is a hindrance, and I get it, in the playoffs it's a problem, but you have to be a decent regular season team to get a good seeding in the playoffs, right? You can't be an 8 seed. You need to be in that top to have any thought. The problem will be, okay, let's say they just say, we're not paying you. We're not going to trade you. And he just sits out. This team is going to struggle to get the open looks that they are so used to taking. This team is going to struggle to get the space on the floor to shoot open threes. They are going to struggle. Danny Green in the corner, not going to be the same looks for him. Seth Curry on the wing, you're not getting the open looks. As frustrating as Simmons is offensively, and guess what? On a scale of 1 to 10, he's a 9.5 of frustration some nights. Total agreement with everybody out there that he is a frustrating offensive player. But outside of scoring, there are other things in the NBA that matter outside of scoring, I should say. And court vision, passing the ball, getting guys open looks, setting your teammates up, defending, they are going to lack and lose that immensely. That will hurt them big time, that he is not there for all of those things. And the stuff that Joel Embiid said today, I believe, has put the nail in the coffin for this situation. This could be Joel Embiid telling management, I tried, guys. I tried to play nice in the sandbox, but guess what? This kid keeps kicking sand in my eyes, and therefore he can't play with my toys anymore. Right? You know, it's like the 12-year-old kid who's asked to play with the 9-year-old kid. Like, hey, I'll play with them. But at some point, the age differential catches up, and the 12-year-old decides, I need to play with kids my own age. That's Joel and Ben Simmons right now. Joel Embiid's the 12-year-old. Ben Simmons is the 9-year-old. Ben Simmons, Joel tried to tolerate Ben for as long as he could. But unfortunately, he just kept kicking sand in his eyes. And he said, I can't keep playing with this kid. He's too immature. He's annoying. He's having meltdowns. And now this, I think today Joel Embiid almost gave the green light to management to say, if you want to trade him, go ahead and trade him. I tried. I've tried to play civil. I've tried to play nice. But in the end, not getting through to him. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. That's the text board. You can dive in on the text board. You know, Joel Embiid basically today said, we had to go get Al Horford because you won't shoot. He admitted that he thought it was a mistake to get rid of Jimmy Butler and that the team did it because Ben Simmons basically wanted the ball in his hands more. Joel Embiid today has said, I have had it with this guy. And guess what? I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Mike, if someone can't see Ben Simmons ceiling this best player in the league, they don't know basketball. Well, that's going a little too far. He definitely has his warts. His warts can be fixed, as all warts can be. You got to be willing and wanting to play, and you got to be willing and wanting to work on your game. He isn't willing and wanting to do it. He is a very good player, but he can be an elite player. He is a very, very good player. He can be an elite player. He can be a first ballot Hall of Fame type of player if he wanted to. He doesn't want to. We all can see that. 609-403-0973. All right, coming back, JR has got another pick for you this week. And, of course, I got my Fine Five, Ugly Five. That's coming up at 4:40. Don't go away. The Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
40 seconds. That's unacceptable. You're in a casino, too. Got to get a better router. Expand that bandwidth, bro. Not you, them.
All right, another week is here. Week 4 starts tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Hill. Don't forget, you can listen to the Bengals and Jags on 97.3 ESPN. I admit it's not a great game appealing to watch for football. But is it an appealing game to bet? I know JR, Wager Pro, and the Wager Pro app, those guys are ready to give you information on this one. Welcome to Week 4, JR. All right, good stuff. Of course, tonight's game you can hear right here on 97.3 ESPN. That's Cincinnati minus 7.5. The Bengals more than a touchdown. Wow. All right, let's look at a couple Sunday ones. I got to get your thoughts on, man, it's an NFL game. 16.5 Buffalo at home against Houston. 16.5 there, JR. All right, how about bad teams? I mean, you got Titans. The Titans are a good team. Jets are a bad team. At home, touchdown, home dog. You feel comfortable there? All right, there you go. And obviously, a lot of people talking about this Sunday night game. It's an interesting because of the hype behind Brady going there. But, JR, 7 points, Tampa Bay road favorite here. Same kind of situation. This is a really good Buccaneers team against an average Patriots team. All right, JR, your favorite play of the weekend is? All right, another week with JR here as week 4 starts tonight. Get that information on Cincinnati and Jacksonville. Thanks, JR. And, of course, we got plenty more games to get into. We'll go through all the numbers. I'll try to guess the spreads with Todd Rank coming up at 5 o'clock tonight here on the Sports Bash. We'll take our first look at the NFL schedule. Yep, up and down that schedule we'll go. Take our first look at that schedule, all the games, my 5 favorite ones, and more. But coming up next, when we return, it is my NFL Fine 5, Ugly 5, 5 best, 5 worst teams in the league. I missed it yesterday. I was out yesterday. So today, you're getting my ugly five best, five worst teams in the NFL after 3 weeks of play. That's next here on the Sports Bash. All right, it's time now for my NFL Find 5, Ugly 5. These are the 5 best and 5 worst teams in the NFL. After 3 weeks, you got week 4 starting tonight. Now, normally, by the way, this is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. So here we go. Find 5, Ugly 5. Now, this is hard this week. The Find 5 is really difficult because, and I'll explain that when we get to the Find 5. Let me do my Ugly 5 first. These are the 5 worst teams in the NFL right now. And this is actually somewhat difficult. There's a lot of candidates for the uglies, but number 5 on my ugly list right now, it's going to be Atlanta. Even though they won last week, they beat the Giants. Atlanta went on the road, so they got a road win, by the way. That's how bad the Giants are right now. Atlanta's terrible defensively, and obviously you saw that against Philadelphia. I mean, the Eagles scored 30-plus against Atlanta. So Atlanta's still in the ugly 5, but they have improved just a little bit here. Number 4 in my ugly 5 is Detroit. They are terrible defensively as well. They've given up 95 points on defense, 0-3 on the season. And obviously, I think they fight hard. I do think they compete. They just don't have the talent, man. They just don't have playmakers. Jared Goff is just an average quarterback. And look, I'm not saying he stinks. He's just average. And he cannot elevate an average bunch of skill position players around him. So Detroit, for me, is in the ugly 5. They are number 4. The Giants are number 3. I mean, you're at home. You lost to Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta got their ass kicked by Philadelphia in their own building. Atlanta went on the road and just had no business beating you, and you lost a game against the Atlanta Falcons at home. Their defense is not very good. Their quarterback play is terrible, but more than anything, I don't even say the quarterback play has been terrible. I think Jones has been average. But more than anything, their offensive line is abysmal. And the Giants are number 3 in my ugly 5. Number 2 is the Jets. I mean, the Jets have been just awful this year. They've given up 70 points. They've only scored 20. The Jets have scored 20 points in 3 games. Let me repeat that. The Jets have scored 20 points in 3 games. Now, I will say, they have played Carolina. They played the Patriots and Denver, who all have pretty good defenses here. So maybe they'll break out. I'm not anticipating it, but the Jets have just been so bad. I think Zach Wilson is a total busteroni. I definitely was not a fan of Zach Wilson going number 2 overall. I'm out on him. I think the Jets are a mess. They've got injury problems. The Jets number 2 in my ugly 5. Number 1 on the list, you'll see them tonight. And that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, they are terrible defensively. 91 points. They gave up Henderson in a trade the other day. The quarterback has thrown an interception in every single game. The offense is not very creative. I think you're seeing a team that is just poorly coached. They don't play good defense. The rookie quarterback is making rookie mistakes. On my way in here today, Bart and Hahn were talking about something that you don't really think about all that much. But I wonder how much it plays a factor is that Trevor Lawrence, if he loses tonight, would have more losses in his first 4 games than in his high school and college career combined. Like, dealing with losses like this, you wonder how much that erodes the confidence of a player. Like, did Trevor Lawrence excel because he was on excelling teams? Or did Trevor Lawrence, was he the reason why those teams excelled? I don't know. I think we're finding out a lot about this kid. How is he going to handle the losing? But so far, look, and if you remember at the draft, I was not a Trevor Lawrence guy. I think he's a good quarterback. If, you stuck him in Pittsburgh, they'd probably be pretty good. But I think he was a good quarterback, not a franchise-altering quarterback. I said that about Tua. I was not a Tua guy. Other guys I like better, like Justin Herbert. I definitely think that, people are kicking themselves that they didn't go the Herbert route. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is a franchise-altering quarterback, and losing so much early on, you wonder if he'll ever rebound the confidence and become that type of player. Can he do that? Can he be that in Jacksonville? And I know here's the hard part. It's like the movie Draft Day. Everybody is telling you to take this guy. And if you don't take him and he goes somewhere else, you look like you made a total egg on the face pick. But in this situation, I wonder I know the problem is there were so many quarterbacks in this class that everybody was talking about. So you had to take Lawrence. But did you miss out by not taking Justin Fields or Trey Lance? Not that any of those are playing very good either. I just didn't think – I thought Lawrence was the kid in draft day. That's my ugly 5. All right, fine 5. Here we go. This is hard. These are the 5 best teams in the league right now after 3 weeks. Number 5, Dallas. I hate to do it to you, but Dallas right now, offensive balance, 90 points. They're one of the top scoring offenses in the league. Love Dak Prescott. I mean, I just can't say anything bad about Dak Prescott. I just think I've liked him for years. A couple of years ago, the conversation between Dak and Wentz, we were wrong. I mean, Dak is a better quarterback, obviously, than Carson Wentz is. Maybe not in 2017, maybe not then, but he is now. And not only is he a better quarterback than Carson Wentz, that's obvious. He's a better quarterback than almost everybody in this league. I would say he's in the top 3 right now, Dak Prescott. He is playing at that high of a level, and he's got weapons all over the place. If their defense can continue to play, they're not going to stay at number 5. They're going to move up this list. Now, they played the Eagles, but they beat a good Chargers team, and they went toe-to-toe with the champs. Right now, Dallas, you're number 5 in my fine 5. Number 4, I haven't had these guys in there, but they've been impressive for 3 weeks in a row, and it's Arizona. I really like the Arizona offense, 103 points. I love the way Kyler Murray's playing. You know, Murray really balances out that offense. He's been accurate, he's been decisive, and he's a playmaker with his feet. He does it all. Kyler Murray's a candidate for MVP so far. Now, he was last year early, too, and they kind of went downhill. But so far through 3 weeks, Arizona, you're in my fine 5. Number 3, I'm sticking with Tampa Bay, even though they lost last week. I like Tampa Bay. They had some injury problems, but Tom Brady, the returning champs, I love the continuity they have. They got Richard Sherman coming in. Hopefully that helps out their secondary. I say hopefully. I don't want Tampa Bay to be good, but they are another team that scores a lot, 103 points. They got weapons all over the place. I think you'll see Tampa Bay get back on the winning track this week. I got Tampa Bay number 3 in my fine 5. Number 2, I'm going to Buffalo, man. I know they looked terrible in week 1. They lost against a bad Pittsburgh team. But in the end, they kicked the crap out of Miami, and then they kicked the crap out of Washington last week. Now, Miami and Washington are not going to be playoff teams. But when you manhandle teams the way they did, Buffalo's back. Buffalo is a team that we thought had Super Bowl aspirations, and you saw why. Offensively, they're explosive. Defensively, they're very good. I like Buffalo right now as number 2 in my fine 5. And number 1, I'm going with the Rams, man. The Rams proved a point last week. They got weapons on offense. Deshaun Jackson with the deep pass over 75 yards. That's all they need him for. They don't need him to catch underneath passes. Hey, run down the field, hit a home run for us. He did it. Cooper Kupp's been the best receiver in the league right now. Underneath, little curls, boom. Slants, boom. They're very good defensively. And Matthew Stafford has been a difference maker for them. I'm sorry. You know, Jared Goff was, I said, an average quarterback. Matthew Stafford's been a difference maker. They've got weapons on offense. I like the offensive creativity. Right now, the Rams are number 1 in my fine 5. I go Rams number 1, Buffalo 2, Tampa Bay 3, Arizona 4, Dallas number 5. Now, there's a lot of candidates. The top 5 is hard. I mean, Kansas City is still in the conversation because of what they bring offensively. San Francisco, I like them probably more than most. I think Carolina's defense is starting to get them some consideration. Green Bay has bounced back after the ugly first week. You've got the Raiders and the Broncos and the Chargers. Those 3 teams that didn't make the playoffs last year, they're starting to show. The Chargers, if they were to win this week, they would have beaten Kansas City, right? They should have won that game against Dallas, and you know they would now have won. You beat Kansas City on the road, mind you. I got to throw that caveat in there too. And this week they're playing the Raiders, so they would have beaten another undefeated team, and they play the Browns the following week. So the Chargers can really be a team that jumps into the fine 5 as well. And then I guess the only other team that would be under consideration would be Tennessee and Cleveland. Tennessee and Cleveland would be under consideration. So there's a lot of teams that are under consideration for the fine 5. On the ugly side, I guess Philadelphia, the way they played last week, you got to start considering them. If they get beat again handily by Kansas City, you got to start thinking about them being in the ugly five. There's a couple other candidates for that ugly five: Washington, Miami. Am I forgetting anybody? Indianapolis. They've had a tough schedule, man. I know they're 0-3. Pittsburgh, maybe. I mean, Pittsburgh's been terrible. They've been dreadful. All right, that's my Fine Five Ugly Five. This hour brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. All right, when we come back, Todd Rank is back. We're going to go through the NFL schedule for week number 4. We'll try to guess the spreads, tell you our favorite games of the week. You can play along. It's always fun when Todd's in the house. You don't want to miss it. It's coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. The old Mike and Todd segment is coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. All right, hour number 4, the 5 o'clock hour, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, driving you home. I'm Mike Hill. Here on a Thursday, the Sports Bash is brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. All right, Todd Rank is here as we get you ready for week number 4 in the NFL. We will go over the schedule, try to guess the lines, talk about the games, give you our favorite thoughts, all that kind of good stuff. What's going on, man?
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I was in Boston this weekend, right? I was at Fenway Park for the first time ever.
I saw those pictures. They look like fun.
Awesome. Have you been to Fenway Park?
I have. I've been there once. It's funny you say that. My buddy from Boston is actually flying in here to LA tonight.
Right.
So
Standard.
We went to the game today, back in the day. I mean, it's been years now, probably over 10 years ago, but what a great experience.
Unbelievable, right? I mean, my girl is not the biggest baseball fan, but she loved it. She was like, now, if you took me here to games, I think I'd enjoy baseball. Like, it just, you go to a game in Philly, the stadium is beautiful. It's a great park, but, I mean, the experience is not, I mean, Philly's a crap baseball town. I mean, come on, let's be honest. That place up there, nobody leaves the stadium. Nobody. They watch every pitch.
Well,
pitch.
It's Boston and it's Wrigley Field, right? I mean, those are the two. I'm a Chicago kind of. I lean to the Cubs, and I love that experience. But It's funny when you were at Fenway, though, Mike. Did you look? Could you believe how short that left porch is?
She told me. She said, "I feel like I'm watching a high school baseball game. It's like it's so small, and there's no concourse. I mean, because there's no concourse, you can't get out of your seat. There's nowhere to go. Like you're literally there. I mean, it's great. It's amazing. So I loved it. We loved it. We had a great time. And I told her, no, we're Wrigley's next. Now she wants to see Wrigley. So you
have to. Yeah. Well, you know, the beauty of the two is they're in those little neighborhoods, which is great, right? So you feel like you're just walking in the neighborhood. Next thing you know, you come upon the stadium.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we went all over the place. I mean, we did a lot of traveling in a short amount of time. I mean, we went to New Haven, we went to Boston, then we went to Newport. I mean, we were driving, boom, 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 hitting places for like boom, boom, boom. So here we go.
And
all right, week 4, man. Yeah, the weather was unbelievable.
Good.
Week 4 starts tonight. We got a clunker tonight. We got Jags and Bengals on 97.3 ESPN. Thursday nighter. I actually like this game, though. I kind of like the over in the game, but I'm going to go Cincinnati. I know that Cincinnati's favored by 7.5, I think.
That was the number, and I would say that's about right. I would have probably said on a Thursday night game, maybe 6.5. I don't know if that line's been moving at all, but I like the Bengals in this game tonight. I like them to cover, but I think it's about a touchdown. Yeah.
So it's 7.5 at every book except for DraftKings, guys. It did open though at 2.5.
Wow.
2.5, right. It made a big jump, and I don't know what the heck the reason was for that jump. Obviously, Lawrence isn't hurt. I mean, it's usually a number like that is because a quarterback's out, but that's not the case. So I don't know, man.
It's the sharp money, Mike. Sharp money came in Tuesday evening.
All right, there you go. That's the reason. Washington is at Atlanta. These are two bad teams. Atlanta's really bad. Washington's got a good defense. I don't know what the problem. They got blitzkrieged last week. Atlanta's horrible, though. They're bad at home. They won on the road last week, but against the Giants. I like Washington here, but I think Atlanta's going to be probably like a 1.5 favorite. But I think Washington goes down there and wins this game.
Do you really see? And I do think that the Washington defense last week, that was a one-off, right? I mean, again, every team or every defense or offense can have a bad game. But I do think the trend of Atlanta being at home, having the ability against the Giants a week ago, NFC East, again, we deal with the Redskins, who don't have a great offense. We know that. I do think Atlanta's going to have enough. I think they're going to win this game at home by about a field goal, similar to last week. I'm going to take them at probably -2.5 for this game.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned 2.5 because it opened as 2.5 for Atlanta, but now it's -1 at DraftKings, -1.5 for Washington on the line. So the line completely flipped.
Yeah, Atlanta's terrible, man. They're horrible.
But they're going defense. Then they're basically picking the defense to win that game because, again, the Redskins offense isn't great either. They got a couple nice players, but
they don't even exist anymore, the Redskins.
Dude. This is crazy.
Washington football team is what we're talking about here.
Oh, Jesus. Well,
Houston's playing Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo has been a monster the last 2 weeks. I mean, they got beaten week 1. They look terrible. Then they kicked the crap out of Miami and Buffalo. I don't see any reason why Houston's any different. I know this one is like, last I saw earlier, it was like 16.5, something like that. That's a huge number.
Houston and Buffalo. They're going off the Buffalo blowout last week. I got to believe that Houston at least comes to fight, don't you?
Nope.
You don't even think you think this is a blowout, like a 35-0 game?
35-10.
Oof. So are we thinking Buffalo is now a top 3 team in this NFL right now?
I got a number 2 in my Fine Five.
Look, it's got to be 2 touchdowns. I don't know if you already know the number, Mike. I'm going to say probably 14.5. Put a hook on it. I'll say 14.5 Buffalo.
Well, the line did open at 14, so Todd, you have the right idea. But depending on how you like your juice, you can get it -17 for Buffalo at DraftKings, 15.5 at FanDuel, or you can split the difference, go 16.5 at your Play Sugar House and Bet MGM.
Yeah, that's a big number in the NFL there. All right, Detroit's at Chicago. These are 2 bad teams, too. Chicago's terrible. Detroit's pitiful.
Hey, we might have Nick Foles quarterbacking for the Bears.
Right there. Have they announced a starter yet for that game?
I haven't heard yet.
They have not announced. All Nagy has said is all 3 are being considered.
I did see that. I don't know if he came up with an answer yet. I will say this. Maybe there's no line on the game because of that, right? I mean, if there was a line, I would think Chicago is a slight favorite, like 2, but there might not be a line on this game.
No, it's a good point. And, it's interesting. Detroit has played well this year. They're playing some tough teams, but their offense doesn't look terrible. Their defense is fighting to the end of the game. If I don't know who their quarterback is for Chicago, the defense of Chicago hasn't been overly impressive. I might like to take the points with Detroit. I agree with you.
Detroit at least fights harder. I mean, they play harder.
What I'm saying. They're playing hard this year, I feel like. So I'd take the points with Detroit, but I do think it's Chicago about a field goal at home.
Todd, you nailed it. Currently, it's a 3 on the spread. It actually opened at 5.5 for Chicago, but Matt Nagy makes those quarterback comments, drop it down to the 3.
Makes sense.
All right, what's next on the docket? We got Carolina and Dallas. Now, this is a good game. I'm interested in this one. I have no idea what this spread's going to be, but I like Carolina's defense, and I love Dallas's offense. I mean, those 2 teams, that's the matchup right there, the offense against the defense. The question is, does Carolina have enough offense, and does Dallas have enough defense? Their defense is questionable. Carolina's offense is questionable, but they both have really good offense and defense. So I kind of like Carolina defensively against, I think, although they did lose Horn's son. He got hurt last week, so that hurts their secondary. I got Dallas here by probably I'm thinking 4.
You were impressed by that Dallas offense this past week.
Well, how could you not be?
I mean, they just ran up and down that field with ease.
It was terrible.
Goodness, that was terrible. Well,
they got weapons, though. They got weapons all over the place, and the quarterback's outstanding.
Well, is it more about the Dallas offense, or was it more about the Eagles' defense?
I mean, it's a combination, but Dallas, they put up points against Tampa Bay in week 1.
Yeah, it's a good point. I look, and do we know anything? I haven't heard anything about McCaffrey with Carolina.
Out.
He's out, right?
Yep.
So you got to go. Yeah, Dallas obviously at home. I think you said 4. I would go maybe a little higher even. I'd say without McCaffrey, Dallas offense from last week, let's say 5.5, -5.5 Dallas.
Well, it's very interesting because, Mike, you are with DraftKings, so you nailed it. It's -4 on DraftKings. But, Todd, if you went to Caesars, it's -5. So there you go.
Wow.
Well, I'll be there. I'll be at Caesars in a week and a half, so I need their line.
Ooh.
Hey.
Well, I always have DraftKings on my phone, unless I'm in certain states. Like last week when I was in Boston, they would. Although it was weird, they had DraftKings ads all over the place, and I couldn't use my DraftKings in the stadium. All right, let's go to Indianapolis, Miami. Now, Indy's 0-3. Miami. I was not a Tua fan, and so I don't think he's playing again this week. I think Brissett's still out there.
Yeah, Tua's on the IR.
Right, I think he's missing the next couple games, but. That team they're just and Indianapolis is supposed to be better. I don't know that they are. Wentz I guess he's just not very good. I mean, I think that's what it is. But their roster's supposed to be better. I'm going to say Miami's is Miami a home favorite here? Man, it's a tough one. With Indianapolis 0-3, I like Indy in the game.
Yeah.
But is Miami like a slight 2-point favorite?
I think I would agree with you, Mike. I might go a little bit even lower, like -1 for Miami, because I do think Indy's going to win this game. I just think the record, it doesn't make sense. Indy should be playing better. They have better
They've
players.
had a rough schedule.
And they, don't get me wrong, that's true. And Wentz has played acceptable in 2 of those 3 games, just hasn't played that extra, you know what I mean, that extra gear to get them over the hump. If they can get that 1 win, I think they start to sled downstream. So I'll go -1 Miami.
Miami opened at -1. It is -2 at DraftKings, -1.5 at FanDuel.
All right, so it's actually going up a little bit to Miami. Again, that defense is probably what they're banking on, right?
Right, but Miami's favored in the game.
Correct.
Yeah, I like Indianapolis there. All right, let's go Cleveland, Minnesota. Cleveland's kind of under the radar. You would think a team that's always terrible and now is good, you would think they would be getting more pub, but there's so many other storylines this season that them being 2-1 is kind of just Minnesota got a nice win last week. I was surprised that they took care of Seattle. They were at home, but that makes it interesting here. I like Cleveland. Man, Minnesota's at home here, but I like Cleveland to be favored by 2.5.
Well, Minnesota, I mean, look, Seattle laid an egg last week, Mike. I mean, as much as Minnesota won that game, Seattle lost that game. But I will say they looked all right. I think
they won without Dalvin Cook, too, by the way.
Which, is he going to be out again this week?
I have not seen that. He's on my fantasy team, so you'd think I know, but I haven't seen a definitive update.
He's limited at practice right now.
Yeah.
Which means he'll probably play, right? But they're just kind of keeping him safe.
I don't know. That came out of nowhere on Sunday that all of a sudden he was trending towards not playing, and I thought he was going to play.
Well, and by the way, it didn't seem to do any harm to their running game because their backup was doing great.
Yeah, Madison's
he's great.
Good.
Yeah. So I'm what's hard for me, Mike? Really, this Cleveland team, I just won't give them props. It's hard for me to do it. I don't know why.
I agree. It's like I don't know. I don't love Baker Mayfield. I mean, I don't know.
But they're playing well. They're winning games. Their coach, they got a good coach, though. I do have to say, they got a good coach there.
He calls a good game.
Yes, and he keeps it tight. Would you say Cleveland on the road favorites?
Yeah.
I think this is a push. I'm going to go push.
And Mike, what was your number?
2.5, Cleveland.
You can get 2.5 right now over at FanDuel. It's -2 at DraftKings. You guys should know, though, this opened at -1 for the Browns. 67% of the public is pounding the dog pound.
All right, there you go. Giants are at New Orleans. Giants are bad. New Orleans, though, they don't trust their quarterback at all. Now, they're at home. They're in New Orleans for the first time since the whole season began here. So they got that going for them here. The Giants are so bad, though. Their offensive line stinks. I'm going to go New Orleans 5.
Only 5. I think this got to be a big number, doesn't it? I think this has got to be it's got to be over a touchdown. I'm going to go New Orleans -8.
Well, the line split the difference on you guys. It's -7 almost across the board. A couple of books have it 7.5 right now, but it's -7 for New Orleans at home.
That's not splitting that's not splitting it. That's closer to Mr. Rank. That's what that is.
Price is right rolls here. Is that what we're doing?
That's exactly right. You can go over. You can go over on this show.
All right, looking at week 4. This is our first look at the NFL schedule going through them. Tennessee is at the Jets. I think Tennessee whips the Jets here. The Jets are horrible. That quarterback stinks. I mean, that kid was the number 2 pick in the draft. He's scared out of his mind.
Well, he's got no offensive line, Mike. I mean, give him some. He's a rookie. He has no business being out on the field, to be honest with you. It's not his fault.
He has no business being on the field because he stinks.
They threw him to the wolves. Put him on, let me tell you this, put him on San Francisco. Does he stink? Probably not.
Maybe.
That's my point. The kid, I got to give him more time than this. I'm not saying I love him. I'm just saying he's been thrown to the wolves with that offensive line. He's running for his life.
Well, that team's going to get bomb this week. Tennessee's going to run all over them. I like Tennessee by a touchdown.
And I'll go higher than you again on this one. I think Tennessee I'm going to go minus.
You just got done telling me I should give this kid a chance. I go touchdown, and you throw it up even further.
Well, look, the
God
point is,
sakes.
it's not about him. It's about the team. The team's bad.
I like him to elevate that team if he could.
And look, first-year head coach, he needs some time. I mean, look, you got to get your system in place. I mean, we expect this team to be 3-0? I mean, of course not.
I like to see the coach be a little more prepared if he could.
I'm going to go minus 8.5 for Tennessee.
It's a big number.
It's minus 6.5 at DraftKings, minus 7 over at FanDuel. If you really want to play around, you can go to your buddy Caesars, Todd, and go 7.5.
There we go. They're speaking my language.
All right, let's go to Arizona is taking on the Rams. I like this Rams team. I like this Arizona team. Rams are number 1 in my Fine Five. Arizona's number 4 in my Fine Five. So this is a good one here. Rams at home, though. I said last week I said I don't know how they're a home dog last week, and they whipped up on Tampa Bay. I like them this week again at home. I think it's 3.5. I'll go Rams 3.5 against Arizona. Arizona, though, has had a propensity to win road division games.
Well, I'm surprised you've got Arizona higher than the Rams in your top 5.
No, I don't. I have Arizona 4. I have the Rams 1.
Oh, 1. I thought you said 5. My mistake. Oh, you got Rams number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, they're playing.
Just beat Tampa Bay. I mean, what do you want me to do? And
they're playing well. And again, Stafford, look at this. He played in Detroit for how many years? Comes to the Rams, he looks like a fine old machine. I mean, he is showcasing his talent with all the talent around him. Him and Cupper are a pretty good combo.
Well, Deshaun Jackson helps when he's healthy.
Yeah, it's nice to see him healthy, right? I was waiting for him to pull up on a lame hamstring on his run to the end zone the other day. He'll get 2 more catches before he gets injured. I love Arizona. Look, I'm a big Kyler Murray fan, but I just that team I don't trust. That's the problem I have right now with Arizona. So I'm going to go Rams. They're at home. Let's go minus 3.5.
Currently, the Rams are minus 4.5 at home. Unless you want to go over to your buddy Todd Caesars, they're minus 6.
Wow,
yes,
that's a big jump, man. Jeez.
Maybe you get involved there, Gil.
Seattle, San Francisco. Seattle is, right now struggling a little bit. San Francisco, I like this San Francisco team. They got a couple injuries, though, but they're at home. Seattle, man, they lost at home. They lost at Minnesota last week. Their defense has been a problem. Their offense hasn't been as good as I thought it would be. Lockett might be a little banged up here. I like San Francisco in this spot. I'll go San Francisco at home. Give me San Francisco 3.5.
Lockett being banged up kills me. He's on my fantasy team standard. But,
as is mine.
But I do love Seattle.
And I do have backups to replace him, including that Jamar Chase.
Well, I like this Seattle team to bounce back. I actually think they're going to cover the spread in this game. But I do see it the same as you. I think San Fran probably a little more than a field goal. So, yeah, I'll go with you 3.5, actually.
Currently, it's 3 at every book except for one. DraftKings has 2.5 for the 49ers.
Okay, not bad, not bad. I like that game, actually. I think San Francisco is pretty good this year. All right, Baltimore's at Denver. This is an interesting one. You got Denver 3-0. They're banged up here. Baltimore, they've got some defensive questions. They're going on the road here. Denver, can they be a home favorite here against a good team? I'm going to go Denver at home, though. I think I'm going to go Denver favorite in this game. Not by the full 3. I'll go Denver 1.5 over Baltimore.
Well, it's an interesting matchup, Mike, because you got a Denver 3-0 team, but it's really suspect when you look at the competitors, right? At the teams they've played so far, not great teams. I don't think any of the teams they've played have won a game yet. So,
Giants, Jets. Who was the other?
Come on,
Jags.
I mean, so it's kind of a camouflage 3-0, but I'm going to lean to Denver at home, but it's going to be tight because Lamar, Baltimore. I'm going to go -1. I'm just going to give them a point.
Denver is currently -1 at home at DraftKings, but Denver is +1 underdog at FanDuel.
Interesting.
That is interesting, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That goes one.
All right, a couple more here. Let's go. We got to move quick. Let's go to Pittsburgh, Green Bay. Now, Pittsburgh's been dreadful. You know, people wondering if Big Ben is done. I think this line has not helped him out all that much. But obviously, you got Green Bay, who's looked pretty good the last 2 weeks after a terrible week one. I got to like Green Bay in this spot here. At home, coming playing well. I'm going to go Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay 6.
Bad matchup for Pittsburgh, right? Green Bay's just starting to get really final machine. I like Green Bay. I'm going to probably go because of the mystique of Pittsburgh. I think it's going to be a little bit lower. You said 6. I'm going to go.
I got
5.
Green Bay by 6.
Yeah, I'm going to go 5.
Mike Gill's got the right idea. It opened at 6. It's currently 6.5. By the way, you should know the Steelers haven't just lost their last 2 games. They've also lost on the spread in the last 2 games.
Yeah, they were terrible last week. All right, got the Sunday night game, Tampa Bay and New England. Everybody's hyping this one up as the game of the century. I mean, I don't look at it as a competitive game, though. I got Tampa Bay coming in, heavy favorite. I think Tampa Bay beats them up pretty good. I got Tampa by 7.
7 is beating them up pretty good?
Well, I'm saying that's the spread, but I like Tampa Bay to beat them up pretty good. I'll go Tampa Bay by 7. I didn't say what I thought the final score was going to be.
Well, you say if you thought what the spread would be, you think it's going to be beaten up. I thought you'd get a little higher, maybe 8 or 9.
Well, they're the road team here going to New England. I'm not going to be a 14-point road favorite.
Well, I mean, you're talking about.
Come on, you're better than that.
You're talking about New England with a rookie QB. They can barely. I mean, they haven't played well at all this year.
No, but they're defensively, they're not bad. Their offense stinks.
Their offense is bad. I'd like them to win by 14, but something feels real fishy about this game. I just heard today that Brady might be a little sick, coming down with the cold or something. That just added to the mix. I think you're right, Mike. I think
how awful would it be if he got COVID or had to sit out with that kind of, and he couldn't play in this game? That would be awful.
Yeah, there's something fishy's going on with this line, but you're right. The line's not big enough, I don't think. But I'll go about a touchdown, maybe 7.5.
All right, last game on the book is Kansas City and Philadelphia. Now, I do know this game was Kansas City 8.5 to start. It moved to like 7 or something like so. The money came in heavy on Philadelphia, kind of boom, and lowered that thing. So, there's a stat out there. Kansas City's 2-12 against the spread in their last 14 games. So I don't know. I kind of feel like Kansas City, they've lost 2 straight. I got to imagine Andy Reid comes in here saying, you ain't getting us for a 3rd time in a row.
Yeah, this is bad timing for the Eagles, Mike. I think Kansas City's just going to blow them up. They need the win, which is unfortunate because normally you wouldn't say that for the Chiefs any time over the last couple of years, but they actually need this win. I think the Eagles are in big trouble. But I think
Kansas City's in last place, by the way, in the AFC West.
And I still think they're the best team in the AFC West, so that tells you something.
Standard.
Right?
All right, that's a look at the lines. That's our first look at the NFL schedule. By the way, your boy Mike, I saw last night. He says hello.
Yeah, you tell him I said what's up. He looks good. You sent me that picture. He doesn't look like he's aged a day.
Right. Standard.
No gray hair. I don't know how that works.
Maybe a little just for men.
I think that is the purchase that will be made shortly.
Ooh, you got a little salt on that head.
Oh, there's no question. You can see it in the camera if they're watching.
Is that what the hat's for?
Always.
Right.
A little different than yours over there.
Just a little golf yesterday, man. Just a little golf. I actually played really average.
I missed that back in the day. We used to go out to that LPGA.
It's great, man. It's a great – and playing in October, like September, it was a beautiful day yesterday. And I'm telling you, I'm horrible. I played average.
You felt good with your performance.
The first shot of the whole day off the tee, they used mine. 250 right down the middle. Bang.
Wow.
Yep.
Very nice. Nicely done by you.
Yep. I haven't played in 2 years. The last time I played there was no event last year because of COVID. So the last time I played golf was 2 LPGA tournaments ago.
Is that right?
And I walked up to that tee yesterday and cranked one 250 down the middle.
And you didn't do any practice swings?
No. What are practice swings? I walked up. The guy said, now entering the tee,
Ooh.
Mike Gill. I walked up. Even the pro, she couldn't believe it. Our pro was outstanding. I mean, she I hit a ball 250 down the middle, and hers would go 280, 300. I'd say, God, you give me
No,
one shot that I feel good about.
she's a professional. That's why.
Well, she retired. She hasn't been on the tour for like 5 years. You know what she's doing? Well, she's a social media star. She got a YouTube show. She does what we do.
As they all do. That's the way
Right.
of the
She says,
world.
I make enough money, man. I don't need that golf game. She just comes out, waves the hand, plays in the Pro-Am, bang.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Good for you, man.
All right, man. That's it.
All right, we'll talk to you next week.
All right, that's our first look at the schedule. Todd Rank, that's him right there on the video screen. If you're listening on the radio, you guys remember Todd. When we come back, Rob Maaddi is here. We'll go Eagles Chiefs. He'll give us keys to the game. Thoughts on Jalen Hurts. The rent is due. Does he have the money to pay it? Rob Maaddi joins me next. All right, here we go on a Thursday evening, getting ready for Thursday Night Football. Chickies and Pete's in Atlantic City. You can watch all the games here this weekend. Got a good college card as well. That starts early. Got Notre Dame on Saturday night, or excuse me, Saturday afternoon. Penn State on Saturday night. So you got a couple of good ones there. You'll have both those games on 97.3 ESPN. Rob Maaddi is brought to you by Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City, and he joins me right now here on the Sports Bash as we take a look ahead. Big Red's back in town, Rob, and he's one win away from his 100th win with the Kansas City Chiefs. That would give him over 100 with two different teams, and I would imagine he is not in the mood for his team to lose 3 straight, including in his former home against a team that has all sorts of issues right now.
I absolutely cannot see that happening, and it was good to see Big Red back in his usual stoic form, answering questions like, I'm looking forward to coming back. No, he gives you nothing, man. He never does. But after the scare that everybody had on Sunday with his health situation, and he's fine, he's okay, he's back with the team, and everything's good. But I can imagine the Chiefs are going to be coming in here. I spoke to Travis Kelce this week, and he's a fun dude, man. And we just talked about them being 1-2. They're in an unfamiliar spot, Mike. They have not been under 500 previously since week 10 of the 2015 season. Man, that's a long time. And here they are under 500. Patrick Mahomes had not thrown an interception or lost a game in September until 2 weeks ago. He was 11-0, 35 touchdowns, no picks in September. 2 weeks ago, they lose to the Ravens. And then last week, he throws a couple picks against the Chargers. So I can see them ready to go, coming out, clicking on all cylinders. And we thought last week was ugly for the Eagles. This one can get really ugly real quickly in Philly at home. And then the boos will descend upon everyone on that field.
Yeah, Rob, and think about this. They're 1-2. If they lose, they'd be 1-3. San Diego or LA plays the Raiders coming up. So one of those teams is going to be 4-0, the Raiders would be 4-0 if they win that game. If the Chargers win, they'd be 3-1 and have beaten Kansas City. So this is a pretty big win for Kansas City. Let me ask you about obviously the theme of the week is running the ball. The Chiefs do not stop the run very well. Does Nick Sirianni care? We hear so many times in the past, this team doesn't stop the run. Sometimes it feels like, Peterson, they didn't care. They're going to do what they want to do. Do you see this and say we have to run the ball?
Not only do they not stop the run, they're banged up too up front, and there's still some uncertainty about some of their guys trying to come back from injury and timeout. But here's the thing with Nick Sirianni. If on Monday night against the Dallas Cowboys, his plan was to attack through the air because he said we need to be able to contend with and keep up with a team that's as explosive as the Cowboys, well, Kansas City is even more explosive than the Cowboys. So if his game plan Monday to keep up with an explosive team like Dak Prescott and the Cowboys was to throw the ball and throw the ball and throw the ball, I can't imagine it's going to be any different on Sunday unless, Mike, it's reactionary. And we've seen now how Nick Sirianni is very aware of his audience. He had not taken as much heat as he did this week before. He's a young coach. It's week 3. But he was intensely criticized this week for only giving the ball 3 times to the running backs. So if he comes out with a concerted effort to run the football, how much of it is his system, his plan, and how much of it is reacting to the criticism?
What did you make of when he was asked about what he wants his offense to be, like what the identity? He said, we want to be, we want to take care of the ball and have explosive play. It's like he kind of wants to have his cake and eat it too. It's like he doesn't know what he wants his identity to be almost.
I think they're still trying to figure it out. It's early in the season. Guys didn't play much in the preseason. Jalen Hurts is still inconsistent. He's up and down, and understandably so. He's a second-year guy who's made 7 starts. So I think they're still trying to figure out what their identity is going to be. It's interesting because I was just over at Buccaneers practice today. And we're talking to Byron Leftwich, the offensive coordinator, and talking about how they evolved as an offense. And their identity took on Tom Brady and what he wanted to do. But he pointed out how he was criticized, and they were criticized early last season because they didn't do enough of the things that Brady liked to do, and then they kind of figured that out.
Yeah.
And if it took a team like that with a quarterback as accomplished as the GOAT, and then they go on to win the Super Bowl, if it took them 3 months to figure out their identity, I think the Eagles, with a young head coach, an inexperienced quarterback, are going to take some time. And I don't think they're going to be able to realize what they want to do and who they are until well into this season. And the answer might not even come, Mike, because we still don't know about Jalen Hurts. We're not going to know about him right now. We hear Deshaun Watson rumors again.
I know.
I mean, this thing is it's going to be 1 week he's great and he's the answer, and the next week he's not. And it's I feel like it's going to be this up and down. Well,
it's going to be interesting, Rob. It's going to be interesting with that story because they got just a gauntlet of games coming up. But the second half of the year, that schedule lightens up. So you can make a definitive thing to say, well, he didn't play well in the first half, but he really got better in the second half of the year. But the schedule is going to be a lot different. So I don't know if you're really going to learn what you want to learn about Hurts. I want to ask you this, though. Sirianni indicated when he was asked about running the ball, that the RPO is a run. It's just that they don't run the ball because the quarterback doesn't. So is he throwing the quarterback under the bus for making bad reads? Or how do you read how he answered that?
Yeah, and that's interesting, Mike, because you can try and take a deep dive into that. He's not going to purposely throw Jalen under the bus. He's not going to purposely say that my quarterback should have done this, should have given the ball, should have handed off. But you can look at it and wonder and question, maybe there were plays there where he thought that Jalen should not have kept it and should have made a better read on the play. That said, 3 designed handoffs, you got to think that when Miles Sanders pops off a 24-yard run and doesn't get the ball again, he had 2 carries, 1 for 3 yards and 1 for 24 yards. You got to
Rob, that and
just run the ball under center,
tight end. Goddard catches the first pass of the game. They obviously can't guard the tight end, and they don't go back to him. It's malpractice. That game, I'm still stewing over the fact some of his answers yesterday. I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. And I want to like Sirianni, and I'm not ready to give up on the guy.
Right,
I mean, he's a young guy, but come on, that was as bad as you were getting pushed around. You had a shot to be in that game, and I feel like he just let the team down, and then didn't want to. I guess he kind of took accountability, but still, that to say, "Oh, we had RPOs, that's our run game." What are you at, Alabama?
I think at least he did say, "Hey, we got to run the football more." All right, let's see what he does. Let's see if he actually does. But this is a big week for him.
He said it the week before too, though.
Yeah, I need to see how does he adjust? How does he game plan? How does he scheme? And to have the Kansas City Chiefs coming in, I almost wanted to see. Well, I definitely wanted to see the Chiefs come in here 3-0 because there could have been potential for a letdown when they come in here at 1-2, coming off 2 straight losses. This team's going to be ready to go. I can't imagine any kind of letdown. If there's a best bet this week, it's the Chiefs laying at 7, 6.5, 7.5, whatever it's going to be at game time.
Sayamala out, Brooks out, most likely Mailata out. You're down to your 3 backups now. Can they? Are they in a better spot this time with 3 backups than they were last year?
They're in a better spot in that, well, you got guys who, in Jack Driscoll's, got some experience. In Andre Dillard, you got a guy who's a former first-round pick who has a little bit of an experience. Yeah, I thought he played okay on Monday night in Andre Dillard. He graded out pretty well, considering. And in Landon Dickerson, he's gaining experience. He's building experience. Like right now, he might be he's the guy that you look at and say they got to figure out how to make up for or compensate for having him in the lineup because of his lack of experience right now. It's a tough spot. There's no way around it. Like you look at this, and as much as we talked about the possibilities with this team, it always centered on that offensive line. If they stay healthy, man, they couldn't even stay healthy 1 week.
Not
like
one.
one week. Like I think back to the 2013 season because Shady McCoy's in the news and he's retiring and doing a whole one-day thing with the Eagles. And he had a tremendous year that year in 2013 under Chip Kelly, and then they end up trading him a couple years later. But that year, the Eagles' offensive line all started every game with Kelsey, Peters, Evan Mathis. I forget. I think Todd Herremans, and I'm not sure off the top of my head who the other guy was. But how remarkable is it that 5 guys started 16 games? I don't know that we'll ever see that again in the NFL. That's not easy to do.
No, and it's, one of the things at the beginning of the year that I harped on was if their line can stay healthy. And the problem is that was a big if. But you saw the first week their offense ran a lot smoother. Now, I don't think the line has been terrible, but I think it changes the way you call the game with the different linemen in there, right?
It has to. It has to because certain guys are better at certain protections, certain schemes, certain blocking patterns than other guys. And there are, Jordan Mailata won the starting job for a reason because he was flat out better than Andre Dillard. And Isaac Seumalo was a starter for a reason. And Brandon Brooks is a 3-time Pro Bowl right guard. And you can feel confident and comfortable using those guys in certain ways. And now you have to, I think, alter the game plan a little bit. But what do you do? How do you attack this Kansas City Chiefs team? And it goes back to what we said in the beginning. Does he come out and make an effort to run the football, keep Patrick Mahomes off the field, and all this old school stuff that we talk about all the time? Because hey, it worked in way back when. The best way to beat Patrick Mahomes in a high-powered offense is to keep him on the sideline. Or does he come out and feel like we got to be explosive, we got to keep up, we got to have chunk plays, we got to throw the ball deep, we got to do that because they're going to score on us regardless. So if you feel that way and that's the mentality, I think this is how it can get away from him quickly.
Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press covers the NFL and the Eagles. You were in Tampa today. Give me something from Brady that made you smile.
So I start out asking him about his relationship with Bill Belichick and how Bill, what he appreciated most about him. And Brady starts out with this the stock answer. He's a great coach. He's a terrific mentor. He taught me a lot over the years, and I had learned a lot from him, and how great of a coach that all these obvious things about Bill Belichick. And then he finishes off with, he goes into the teammates and how much he admires and respects them. And then at the end, I thought, un-Brady-like today, but they know I want to kick their butt. I'm like, there's the soundbite everybody wants. There it is, Tom. Thank you. Smile. Everybody's like, appreciated that. And there it is. But, man, he's such a business-like mentality, shows up. It's so different over there at One Buck Place, Mike. Like, you can actually ask questions of the GOAT without having to fight 55 other media members to get a question.
How many people cover that team down there?
So today was probably the biggest contingent because Tom speaks here on Thursdays. I think there may have been 10 to 12. 10 to 12.
Oh,
Super Bowl champions going into the biggest game, right, against the New England game. I don't think I saw any Boston reporters.
I was going to say, was there a New England-based reporter there?
No. I would have thought somebody would be here, especially because today's the day Tom speaks. Now the game's not here.
Like NFL, Reese.
There was someone. I think there was an NFL Network and there was an ESPN.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, I forget who it was, but there was one NFL. There was one ESPN person.
Rob, faith on the field. It's Jalen Hurts says the rent is due.
Yeah.
He owes a lot of money, man. He owes a lot of money this week.
Is he getting evicted, man? If the rent is due.
Unbelievable.
He got kicked out Monday night. The rent is due.
Ooh.
The rent is due.
He's lucky we're in Jersey because you can't throw the guys out on the street if they don't pay their rent here.
Oh, it's still like that right now. Oh,
yeah,
wow. Yeah. So it's part two of it's the full conversation on Faith on the Field. I had 2 parts I played on the AP football podcast, the NFL podcast, but on Faith on the Field, it's the full conversation where he gets that rent is due mentality, who really helped him develop those leadership skills that he has, what it's like playing in front of Eagles fans. And we did not get into his post-Cowboys loss comments about flushing things down the toilet.
That's Faith on the Field, Saturday at 9, Sunday 6:30. Rob Maaddi's your host. Jalen Hurts is this week's guest, and you can hear it right here on 97.3. All right, Rob, we'll talk to you Tuesday, man. Have a good
Thanks,
weekend.
Mike. Appreciate it, buddy.
That's Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. Great job on the NFL and the Eagles. Long time covered the Eagles. He is now based out of Florida. Covers the Eagles, covers the NFL. He's covering the whole league. Still does a lot of Zoom stuff for the Eagles, and he hosts Faith on the Field right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, when we come back, I'm wrapping up the show live from Chickies and Pete's here in Atlantic City. I love this place, man. The TVs are unbelievable. It's a great place to watch your Thursday night, your Saturday football. Your Saturday card is great. It's a good one. And an NFL all the way through, from the Eagles all the way through Sunday Night Football. What a great set of games we just went through. I'm back with the final segment of the show next. All right, we're about out of time. We'll wrap up the show with these thoughts here. By the way, we asked you on Twitter today at 973ESPN. One stays, one goes. Now, I thought we were going to have more time to get into this, but we didn't because so much kind of happened. And, it kind of happens like that on a Thursday. One stays, one goes. Who stays? Ben Simmons versus Aaron Nola. Josh, who do you think's winning that vote? Do you have a guess on who's winning the vote? One stays, one goes. Vote on who stays. Who do you think the listeners voted for? Who stays? Aaron Nola or Ben Simmons?
I mean, I'm assuming it's Aaron Nola stays just because of the fact how many people hate Ben Simmons.
Well, I mean, Nola's fresh in their mind. He pitched last night.
Yeah, but do people really care? Like the Phillies are almost like a dead topic almost, some people.
That's a good point. I mean, the results would say you're right. 74% say Nola stays, Simmons goes.
Not
Probably
surprised.
I would imagine they're going to get their wish. I don't know. I would say this. I would not be surprised if the Sixers play the game and basically make him suffer for the year. And then maybe after he gets hit in the pocket for 1 year, that they do something in the offseason. I think two things are possible here. They trade him at the deadline or in the offseason. I don't know if they're just going to trade him like right now or like in the next week or something like that.
My consistent position has been a team is going to come along desperately wanting him, and they will overpay for them, but underpay what the maximum Morey wants, and Morey will meet them in the middle.
I mean, if somebody calls him, I think Morey will take him. Phillies tonight, who cares? What do you got coming up next?
We got some NFL talk with Andy McNamara from Sportsnet. Of course, also we'll get into the latest with the Eagles, the injury report, and of course, reaction to Joel Embiid's comments today.
All right, I will be at the LPGA tomorrow, so come on out and see me there. Pete Thompson going to stop by later on in the show. And, good day. Thanks, everybody at Chickies. Always fun here in Atlantic City. I'll be back tomorrow.